Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto is cursed with immortality. Highschool DxD Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for Part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. A groan could be heard all around the small house as a young man in his 17 opened his eyes slightly and looked at his newest, but now crushed alarm clock, wondering just how many more alarms he had to buy before he would start to leave a dent on the table beside his desk. Last night he had stayed up late, but forgot to switch the timer so his alarm clock would not wake him up so early. Never a morning person, the clock itself just made it worse. Naruto Uzumaki sat up on his bed and grabbed the destroyed alarm clock before throwing it out of the window with just the right angle to make it fall right into the open garbage bin in front of his house. The young man ran his hand through his unruly golden blonde hair as his azure blue eyes blinked repeatedly to get used to the bright sunlight of the morning. "Well, happy 17th birthday to me," Naruto muttered as he looked at the small calendar on the wall. It was October 10th, the day that he was born. His birthday was something he had always enjoyed. It was the day that he allowed himself to do whatever the fuck that he wanted in whatever life that he had created for himself in his boring immortal life. There would be no work, no part-time job. It would be just him and his instant ramen while letting himself being lazy all day. Stretching his body, the blonde stood up and muttered the last part of his speech again and headed into the shower room, not looking at the box carrying a pendant with the words NNS carved into it that he had, once again, spent the whole night looking at. After he had taken a shower, and dressed himself in a black shirt and matching color pants with orange stripes, Naruto headed out of the house for a walk around the street to enjoy the fresh air of the early morning, looking for breakfast. Even though he had just moved into town a week ago, his neighbors recognized the blonde and greeted him with the most friendly smiles anyone could muster, which he happily returned. Naruto almost let out a soft chuckle as he remembered how different it had been back then when he was still living in his village, the place where he originally came from. As he continued to walk while enjoying a loaf of bread, Naruto scratched his whiskers cheek and smiled at a group of high school girls that walked past him, giggling while telling each other how handsome and attractive he was, at the same time how exotically cute he looked with those whisker marks on his cheeks. However, his smile turned into a frown the moment he was behind them. Due to the circumstances of his life, Naruto had come to dislike unnecessary attention, as he had learned that it would only bring him nothing but trouble afterwards. In a few years or decades, he would eventually have to move, and these young women, they would be just that. A group of people happened to walk past him. Arriving at another bakery for another bread, finding his previous one not quite enough to satisfy his hunger, Naruto pushed the door open and walked in, debating whether or not he should buy himself a piece of birthday cake as well. Despite having it repeated year after year after year, it wasn't like every day was his birthday, and Naruto himself had always wanted to enjoy it to the fullest. They all looked delicious. The blonde muttered to himself as he looked at all the cakes on the case, choosing what to buy. Before he could make his decision, however, Naruto saw a small girl from the corner of his eyes. She had short white hair that went past her shoulder, 2 long bangs at each side of her head, and rather strange golden yellow eyes. She had a really cute face and a petty frame, wearing clothes similar to that of the group of girls he had met earlier that morning. The white-haired girl was standing on her toes, arm outstretched above her head as she tried to reach for the cake that had been put too high for someone of her height to get. Smiling a little, Naruto picked up his own, walked over to her, towering over the girl completely, and then took the piece of cake from the shelf. "Here you go, little miss," Naruto said with a nice guy grin and handed the cake over to the girl, who had a look of surprise on her face. "Thank you," she said quietly, almost emotionlessly, but Naruto could detect some gracefulness in her tone. With a smile, the blonde rubbed her head, suddenly feeling the need to do so before he turned around and walked away. "We'll see you later then." With that, he headed over to the shopkeeper to pay for his cake, not caring that the little girl was looking at him the whole time. Flashing a charming smile to the shopkeeper and made her blush furiously, Naruto headed out of the store and headed back to his home. Couldn't help but see more and more high school students coming from the opposite way of him, talking and laughing at each other. He then looked over to the school that they were heading into, missing the life of a high school student a bit, one that he had replayed almost 1,000 times already. Maybe he could try it out later in 100 years. Since at the moment, he was having the life of a friendly neighbor and a ramen chef. As he stood in front of the school gate, with the name Ko Academy above him, the immortal shinobi couldn't stop himself from letting a small wow escape his lips, as he marveled the size of Ko Academy. Whoever built the place must either be insanely rich or just insane enough to build a 5-star hotel-like school like one for normal high school students. But nonetheless, Naruto liked it, and decided he would stop here in the near future if he got bored or something like that. Then, he saw the group of students parted into 2 lines, forming 2 lines of admiration and adoration for the 4 students that were walking toward the school building, like what happened in that Korea drama he had watched a while back. Naruto instantly recognized one of them being the small white-haired girl he had met earlier that morning, while the ones walking with her were a boy and two girls. The boy looked like he was around his real age with blonde hair, but in a darker shade than him. He had an averagely build, but Naruto could tell that had some lean muscles underneath. He wore the school uniform for boys, and his most noticeable feature was his incredibly handsome face like that of a prince, or a very handsome butler in those manga he liked to read from time to time. The boy was waving to the girls of the school, flashing them heart-melting smiles while the guys just threw curses at him mercilessly, causing Naruto to almost burst out in laughter. He knew, better than anyone could tell, how it felt like to be inferior to the handsome guy, so he understood well why they did that. The next one was a girl with long black hair that tied into a long ponytail by a large orange ribbon. What surprised him the most, however, was her insanely, ridiculously, abnormally, otherworldly attractive body. This girl was so sexy that she caused Naruto to unconsciously take out the special book he always carried with him in his back pocket along with a pen to write down the details of her extremely voluptuous features body. Naruto was very surprised that he could find a schoolgirl with a figure that put a supermodel to shame here, finding himself unable to take his eyes off her body. Naruto admitted that he was a pervert in more way than one, but he had always had a sharp eye for young women like her. Imagine what she would look like in a few more years. Also, doing this reminded Naruto of the reason the late Toad Senin made the Ika Ika series and why he had decided to take over it. It was truly a gold mine, and it had always been one of the top best-selling series of the world since the day it was published. After selling all of the first books, Naruto had decided to carry the man's legacy and continued the series with his own version of it. It was really hard at first considering the fact that he wasn't a super pervert, but literally nothing couldn't be done after a lot of sex with a number of beautiful women. Not to boast or anything like that, but the series had made him so rich that currently Naruto wouldn't have to worry for another 1,000 years or so, considering how successful the followed-up books were. Let's see, Naruto muttered and wrote down his notebook rapidly without taking his eyes off of the girl 5'6", 1026089, damn. G-Cup? She is a real deal, Naruto said, impressed. She has gentleness to her smile, but something tells me that she is into BDSM. Probably an S. No, she's an M, or maybe she's both. What an interesting girl. Naruto finished. That's all he needed to write down to create a masterpiece. Naruto turned his gaze to the last girl and nearly dropped his jaw to the ground in shock. He had thought the black-haired girl was beautiful before, but this one was on another league of her own. A young woman appeared to be in her late teens with light skin, blue-green eyes and a voluptuous figure. Her most distinctive feature was her long, crimson-red hair that reached down to her thighs, with a single piece of a hogue hair strand sticking out from the top. Her hair also had loose bangs covering her forehead, and side bangs framing her face. Like the black-haired one, the young woman was wearing Academy girls' school uniform, which made her buxom figure stood out even more than normal. The uniform consists of a white long-sleeved, button-down shirt with a black ribbon on her shirt collar worn under a black shoulder cape and a matching button-down corset, a magenta skirt with white accents, and brown dress shoes over white crew-length socks. All in all, she was a beauty. Naruto wouldn't admit it, but he had always had a thing for redheads like her. While this girl's hair color was crimson, Naruto couldn't help but feel somewhat attracted to her toward her. But what confused him the most was that Naruto was unable to write her down his notebook. He didn't even bother checking her out, while having the feeling that he had met her, or at least seen her somewhere before. Memories that he did not know about flashed hazily in his mind, showing him the smile of a young woman with the same crimson-colored hair as hers, the same eyes. Naruto couldn't recall her face, but he could tell she was more mature and was even more beautiful. Naruto grabbed his face, and almost fell to his knees as he tried to remember, but finding his brain hurt badly from his own effort. Naruto knew he had amnesia, that there was a point in his life a few years back, that he couldn't remember anything at all. It had taken him very little time to realize that almost 2 centuries worth of his memories had been erased from his mind. Why? Naruto never found out. Standing up and regaining his composure, Naruto put the notebook and the pen back into his pocket before walking away, not realizing that the crimson-haired girl had turned her head toward his direction and was looking at him. The girl frowned and soon found herself looking at him longer than she had intended to do. Break. Naruto bit another mouthful of his croissant before continuing to write down his research onto the notebook on his lap. His azure eyes had been replaced by a pair of light purple ones, with the veins around his temples becoming more noticeable. He was currently spying on a couple that was 2 miles away from him, watching them as they passionately made love to each other. In most situations, Naruto would do the research himself, which could only mean himself spending some quality time with some voluptuous women whom he could easily seduce. But at the moment, he wasn't in the mood to do it, and chose the good old Peking method to have some time to think. He thought about the group of high school students he saw that morning. It was quite clear to him that they were not human. He didn't know what to call them, but they definitely didn't feel like humans, at the same time wondering why didn't bump into one of them any sooner. At first he thought they were some kind of alien species invading Earth, but he firmly believed that they weren't those ugly creatures with green skin that went to Earth and declared, "Take me to your leader," like the ones he had seen on TV. Naruto then remembered the crimson-haired girl who had confused him the most after he saw her. Who was she? That question had been lingering in his mind from the moment he had seen her, and yet he still had no idea. She reminded him of someone important, and yet he could not recall them. The more Naruto thought about it, the more frustrating it got. Her hair color was truly unique, and Naruto would definitely remember it if he had seen it somewhere before. Swallowing the last piece of his croissant, Naruto looked at his notebook and saw that it was already filled ideas that would have given the pervy sage a massive nosebleed, if such a thing was possible. Naruto then heard a helicopter heading his way, and as much as he wanted to pull a prank on the pilot, he decided now was not the time for that, and he really didn't want to freak anyone out. Deactivating his eyes, Naruto gently let himself fall from backward the top of the Eiffel Tower just before the light of the helicopter could catch him. The blonde closed his eyes as he enjoyed winds. Just before becoming nothing more but a splatter on the ground, Naruto snapped his eyes open and disappeared in a flash of yellow, leaving Paris silently and wordlessly. Break. Rias Gremory frowned when she saw that mysterious young man walking past her school once again, this time pulling a cart behind him. He had been on her mind lately, after seeing him for the first time that day. Rias didn't know why, but she could have sworn that there was something familiar about him. Someone as handsome and as attractive as she was, even Rias had to admit it. With those whisker marks on his cheeks, she would not forget that easily. Not only that, Kaneko had told her about the strange feeling coming from him when she bumped into the blonde earlier that day at the bakery near the school. While Rias felt absolutely nothing from him, which could only mean that what Kaneko had felt from him was natural energy, she couldn't help but find something a bit odd about the blonde. Rias turned to her black-haired queen and saw she was reading a familiar orange book while giggling perversely. She had no shame to admit that the book, which was porn at its finest, was really good. Both her and Akino were big fans of the Ika Ika series, and both of them were really looking forward to the publish of the next volume by its current author. Getting back to her current business, Rias watched as the blonde set the cart he had been pulling down and began to wander near the school gate, taking out a small notebook and writing down something. Just as she began to wonder what he was writing, the infamous perverted trio of Ko Academy ran across the schoolyard screaming in fear as the girls of the Kendo Club chased after them in anger, bakens in their hands. Rias nearly let out a soft giggle when she saw Issei Hayato, the boy she had been keeping an eye on, being chased around, and still couldn't quite believe that he was the current best candidate for her peerage. Once the trio had disappeared and the blonde seemed to have gotten what he came for and left, Rias let out a sigh and decided to take a shower to clear her mind. Maybe the blonde was just that, a young man that happened to walk past Ko Academy. But just before Rias could turn her head away, her eyes widened in shock when she saw the boy stop in his mid-step and turn his head directly at her direction, bringing his hand up and waving it at her before he walked away again. Rias nearly jumped from the surprise and looked around to see if any student were waving back at him, but then realized that she was the only one. "Rias, something wrong?" Akino looked up from her book and asked her best friend with her usual gentle smile. "Nothing, Akino, nothing at all," Rias said slowly before standing up from her chair beside the window. Folding her arms under her large, Rias let out a smile before making a mental note of getting to know him. "Break. Here's your ramen." Naruto grinned and put 3 bowls of ramen down on the table. "Uzumaki-san, 2 more please." "On it." Naruto shouted and quickly returned to his ramen stand and made 2 more bowls of ramen while humming a soft tune, recalling the teaching of I Am Tuchi, his first sister figure. She and her father had been the first people to ever teach him to cook, and while it was unfortunate that it was their ramen, Naruto could not ask any more than that. Time flew, as his last customer paid for the meal and left. Naruto looked at the sky outside and saw that it was almost dark. Gathering the tables and chairs, Naruto put them on his cart before walking back to his stand to clean up, crouching down and starting to gather his things so he could head home when suddenly he heard light footsteps coming toward his ramen stand. Without looking up, the blonde said in a matter-of-fact tone, "Sorry, but I am closing." "Oh, and here I thought that I could finally try out the best ramen in town." A soft and melodic voice called out softly to him, making Naruto's eyes widen in surprise. He then peeked his head up from behind his stand and found himself looking at the very same crimson-haired girl that had been in his mind the past few days, standing with her arms folded underneath her large and looking at him with a small smile on her beautiful face. "Well?" the girl asked with hope in her voice. "Well, I am sure the pot still has something left," Naruto answered the beautiful crimson-haired young woman as she let out a soft, melodic giggle into her hand when the blonde abruptly stood up and clumsily hit his head against the top of the shelf of his ramen stand. "Please take a seat," Naruto said, gesturing his hand to the lone chair on the other side, allowing Rias to make herself comfortable while waiting patiently for the blonde to make her order. Ramen definitely wasn't one of her favorite food, because she knew how unhealthy it was. But after finding out that this young man owned a famous ramen stand despite the fact that he had only recently arrived in town, she couldn't stop herself from coming over to try it out, at the same time to get to know him more because beside that, she couldn't find out anything else about him, even his medical files, his education and even his family's information. It felt he just popped out from nowhere and began to wander around the town. When someone like that suddenly came into town, it would always mean trouble because some of them sometimes did not come in peace. However, after a few days of having Kiba, her knight, kept an eye on him for her, Rias had come to a conclusion that he meant no harm to her or the people in the town. So with that in mind, she had finally decided to approach him, coming to his ramen stand almost as soon as school had ended. So Rias began while resting her elbows on the table, striking a conversation with the blonde. "I have not seen you in town before. Are you new here?" "Yup." Naruto smiled as he poured the cooked noodles into a bowl. "I moved here around a week ago. What about you, miss? What brings a lady like you to my humble ramen stand?" "Just wanted to try something new, I guess," Rias said, making Naruto raise an eyebrow. "You know, there's quite a number of ramen stands and diners around here, but everyone has only been talking about you only. So I want to see if they are as good as they said." "Well, I guess there's no better way but try it out yourself, is there?" Naruto chuckled before putting a steaming bowl of ramen down to the table in front of Rias. He was lucky that he hadn't put out the fire yet, and there were still enough materials to make one for her. "Itadakimasu," Rias declared and took a pair of chopsticks and spoon from Naruto before she started to eat, slowly putting the food into her mouth and tasted carefully. She had eaten ramen a few times before with her friends, but this ramen had a really unique taste to it, and was on a level of its own. "Wow, it is very delicious," Rias said happily after swallowing the noodles, making Naruto grin. "Thanks, that's an Uzumaki special. I'm Naruto, by the way, Naruto Uzumaki." Naruto introduced himself as he sat down the chair on his side of the stand / Rias Gremory, "Nice to meet you." Rias lowered her head and then continued to eat her meal, making extra sure that she would not talk with foods in her mouth. "Nice name, it has a nice ring to it." Naruto repeated her name, feeling a familiar taste rolling on his tongue. "I like it. Are you a foreigner?" he asked. "Kinda, I move here to live a Japanese school life." Rias smiled, finding it rather funny that a ramen chef would have Naruto, fish cake, for his last name, but decided to not speak openly about it to him. "So Naruto-san, I have seen you wandering around Ko Academy lately. May I ask why?" Rias asked, sounding as normal as she could. She didn't want him to feel suspicious about her. "Maybe it's just because I found a lot of attractive girls there." It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the truth either. The reason Naruto had come to Ko Academy nearly every day was because he had learned about the infamous pervert trio of the school, who he felt that could give him a bunch of materials and ideas for his next book. "Oh, am I one of them?" Rias couldn't help but ask, a playful smile on her face. "For sure, Rias-chan, for sure." Naruto grinned and gave her a thumb up. This seems to be a personal question, but I really want to know, Naruto-san. How old are you?" Rias looked at him expectantly. "You seem to be of the same age as I am, but why are you a ramen chef? Don't you go to school?" "Well, I am 17, but I quit school a while ago," Naruto answered with a small chuckle, causing Rias to widen her eyes in surprise. "After my parents passed away, and don't worry about it, I lived on the streets for around 2 or 3 months before I was adopted by the leader of my village. I got accepted to a school with the help of him, but after everything was said and done, I decided to start traveling around like my old teacher, to find a place that I can belong to, and so, here I am." In silence, Rias listened to Naruto's short summary of his life story, and saw a tired look in his bright blue eyes, which seemed to dull for a second. She had never seen those tired eyes from someone as young as he was, making her wonder what had happened to him during his journey that had caused him to have that look. "What about you, Rias-chan, what's your story?" Naruto's eyes suddenly changed and the youthfulness appeared inside them again as he turned back to look at her directly. What do you mean?" She was completely caught off guard by his question and really didn't know what to say. "You know, it's kind of hard to hide it when you always look out of that window with a faraway look," Naruto told her with a small smile, making Rias widen her eyes a bit in surprise. So he knew she had been watching him. I don't want to push and you don't need to tell me if you don't want to, but I have been told that I am a better listener than a storyteller, so why don't you tell me your life story, Rias-chan? Plus, don't you think it is kind of unfair when I have told you mine but nothing about you but your name? Why yeah, it's only fair I guess. Rias let out a small sigh and for the next 15 minutes, Rias told Naruto about the story of her life, carefully leaving out the supernatural parts but at the same time wondering how easy it was for her to pour her heart out to him. She didn't know why she just told the boy she had just met almost everything about her life like that. Just by talking to him, she felt like a huge weight had been lifted from her shoulders, allowing her to be at ease for the first time in a very long time. Break. For the next few days, Rias had become Naruto's most frequent customer, sometimes coming just to have a chat with him. But it didn't take any more than 2 of her meals for Naruto to realize that Rias wasn't a fan of ramen, but he didn't complain because he had come to enjoy her company, which also increased his customers by a huge number because apparently, she was the most popular girl in town. It also didn't take it long for him to realize that her life might have been more complicated than he could ever imagine. He had given helpful advices to other people before, and they always found them very useful, but with Rias, Naruto didn't know his words would be of any use to her. Today was his day off, and Naruto found himself sitting down behind on a bench in the park and biting the end his pencil as he tried to think about some new ideas for the next book of Ika Ika Paradise. The deadline was near, but he hadn't come up anything new or interesting yet. Rias had been a distraction towards this job of him lately, causing him to become slack off with his life work. Naruto then closed the notebook and looked at the watch on his wrist, realizing that it was time for him to go home. Maybe tonight he could go out and do some personal research with some attractive women. That thought alone made Naruto giggle perversely. Wait, bad Naruto, stop yourself. Mentally slapping himself, Naruto left the park and headed home, deciding to walk there instead of the other method. The blonde traveled for a full minute before the feeling of purity inside a person's heart hit him, causing Naruto's eyes to widen as he then turned his head to the side to locate the source, just in time for a white veil to fly into his face. Pulling the piece of cloth off of his face, Naruto then saw a girl running towards him while holding a large suitcase in her arms with her legs shaking a little due to the weight of it. She was a girl around 15 to 16 years of age with long blonde hair and green eyes. Her hair flowed all the way down her back, with split bangs over her forehead and a single strand sticking out from the top, sloping backwards. Her attire consisted of a dark teal nun outfit with light blue accents, a brown satchel slung around her hip, and brown boots with black straps in an X-shaped pattern. She also wore a silver cross necklace around her neck. My veil! The girl cried out in Italian and stopped right in front of him, panting hard. Here you go, sister. Naruto smiled and said to her in perfect Italian, gently putting it back on her head and making her blush a little. It was really strange for Naruto to find an Italian nun in Japan like this, and not only that, the blonde girl was really cute and her face was very innocent as well. It had been a long time since he last felt a heart as pure as hers. Next time watch out for the wind, okay? Thank you very much. She smiled innocently, making Naruto smile at the cuteness of her face, and then adjusted the veil on her head. The wind blew a little, making her dress to flip up slightly. Naruto let out a small chuckle at the irony of the situation and his speech. Yup, she should definitely watch out for the wind. So, are you traveling? Naruto asked the girl with a frown on his face. No, I'd been appointed to the church in this city, but I got lost on my way. She scratched the back of her head while sticking out her tongue cutely. You must be a resident of this town. It's a pleasure to meet you. She bowed her head to him, while smiling softly. I have been in trouble since I got here. I can't speak Japanese that well. I was lost and other people couldn't understand what I was saying. I am so glad that I'm able to meet you. She held her hands together in front of her chest and looked really depressed. I think I might know where the church is. Naruto folded his arms across his chest, trying to remember any churches that were located in town, but he couldn't think of any aside from the old, abandoned one that he came across the first day he was here. There was something fishy about it, he could tell, but decided that it was not his business. Why you do? Thank you. This is all thanks to God. She smiled at Naruto with tears flowing from her eyes. But then both blondes turned their head to the park next to them when she heard a whimper and frowned slightly when they saw a boy sitting on the ground, crying, while holding his bleeding knee. Hey! Almost with no hesitation, the nun ran over to his side and kneeled down beside him, making Naruto's eyes follow her small figure with curiosity. Are you okay? Boys shouldn't cry with a minor injury like this. She patted the boy's head gently. It was obvious that the small boy couldn't understand what she was saying, but she had such a kind expression on her face that he stopped crying and looked at her. The sister put her hand where the boy was injured, and then Naruto froze in shock when he saw a green orb of light forming in the sister's hands before she placed it on the boy's injured knee. In a blink of an eye, the injury slowly closed and healed up, leaving no scar or any trace indicating that it was ever there. There was no way the girl knew healing technique like him, right? After meeting Rias, Naruto had come to learn that there were supernatural beings out here, especially after his meeting with Rias Gremory, who he had found out to be holding some kind of strange power inside of her. While becoming aware of their existences, Naruto had absolutely no interest in messing with them. He was just a wanderer who preferred a normal, peaceful life, and he knew that if he got himself involved in their business, he would only give himself a ton of headaches and troubles. But still, this girl just showed him something he had never seen before from anyone else but from his old teammate, and the woman he considered his grandmother. No, Naruto thought to himself as he watched the girl smiling gently to the now smiling boy, her power might even outmatch them in terms of healing power. I think I need a drink tonight, Naruto thought as he massaged his temples. His sensei always said beautiful girls always bring trouble with them, and maybe he was right after all. At the same time, the boy's mother was in shock, and Naruto really couldn't blame her at all. Anyone who saw unimaginable things like that would have a similar reaction. Here, your wounds are healed. The pain should be gone now. The sister patted the boy's head and looked at Naruto with the same innocent smile. I'm sorry, but I had to. She laughed while sticking her tongue out. The boy's mother, who was shocked before, shook her head and then grabbed the boy's hand so they could leave quickly. Thank you, Wani-chan. The boy smiled widely and waved happily to her even though he was being dragged away by his mother, leaving the blonde-haired nun to stand in confusion, but nonetheless she waved back at him. This kind of behavior between humans always made Naruto feel really good, and it was nice to see there was still someone with so much caring in them. He said, "Thank you, big sister." She smiled happily as Naruto translated the boy's words to her anyway, that light. Yes, it's the power to heal. It's a wonderful power that God gave me. She looked down and sounded a bit sad, even though the girl was smiling. Naruto frowned. Something had definitely happened to this young nun, and he didn't like it. His instincts were screaming inside of his head about the situation. There was something definitely not right about this nun. But with a mental slap, Naruto pulled himself out of those thoughts. He probably shouldn't get too deep into it. The conversation between the two ended there, and they continued walking towards the church, with the nun followed closely behind him as he pulled her luggage for her. It did not take it long for them to get there, after a few minutes of walking. Naruto then took a second to look at the window, and saw light coming from inside the building, meaning that there were people inside. Naruto nodded his head rapidly at that. He might turn a paranoid old geezer if he continued to think negatively, and feel suspicion about everything. Yes, this is the place. I'm so glad. The nun gave a sigh of relief after having compared their location with the map she had. Then I'll be on my way. Take care, sister. Naruto smiled to her and handed the nun back her luggage. Please wait. The nun called out to him, making Naruto stop in the mid-step. Turning his head, Naruto looked at the girl and he saw her twiddling her thumbs nervously. I would like to make you some tea as a gratitude for taking me here. No, don't worry about it. I'm glad that I could help you, there's no need for that, Naruto said to her before she could finish her sentence. But that she seemed a bit troubled. The nun probably wanted to make him some tea to show her gratitude, and as much as Naruto wanted to enjoy it with her, he had a schedule to follow and Rias had been enough of a distraction to him already. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. What's your name? He asked kindly to her. My name is Asia Argento. Please call me Asia. She smiled brightly. Then, Sister Asia, let's meet again. Yes. Naruto, I will definitely come and see you. Asia bowed her head down to him at that. Naruto then left the place after waving his hand at her. He could tell that she had stood there and watched him until he was out of her sight. Little did he know that this fateful meeting with Asia would be the start of a chain of events for the blonde immortal shinobi. Break. Naruto sighed as he traced the tip of his finger around the lip of the glass of wine in his hand, while sitting with his head propped up by his arm at the bar table of one of the most expensive and popular nightclub in Las Vegas, a place that he went to whenever he had a lot in his mind. Naruto, again, had been trying to get drunk, but he knew that no matter how hard he tried, the alcohol that passed through his mouth and down his throat and into his gut would be just like a cup of water. Sure, he could still feel the taste, as well as the buzz of alcohol, but it didn't mess up his head at all, making him unable to forget all the bad things that had happened to him. At times like this, Naruto wanted nothing more than to kill himself. He had done so, actually, committing suicide more than anyone had ever tried to do, but nothing worked on his immortal body, leaving behind not even a scar. Living so long without any connections, no friends nor family, and even trying to distance himself from people around him, it was truly a miracle he hadn't gone insane and destroyed the world just for the fun of it. Naruto sighed and asked the bartender to refill his glass, and she did without hesitation. "I will have whatever he is having, please." Before he could bring the glass to his lip, however, he heard a gentle and feminine voice on his left and turned to see a woman sitting down on the chair beside him, unable to stop himself from raising an eyebrow in surprise because this had to be the most beautiful and attractive woman he had ever met in his life so far. She had silver hair that flowed down her back like a waterfall of silk and a breathtakingly beautiful face that was donned in light makeups. The cocktail dress she was wearing looked like they were made from an extremely fine silk, hugging her the deadly curves of her body perfectly, and making her look extremely sexy and elegant at the same time. The skirt of her dress was short, so it was showing a lot of delicious creamy white skin of her thighs and mile-long legs, her feet being accompanied by a pair of sliver-high heels that just added another sexy touch to her dress altogether. A memory flashed through his mind as he looked at the woman sitting next to him, but left as quickly as it appeared, making Naruto wince in pain as his brain began to hurt. He stared at her in confusion. Her eyes slowly gazed his way and smiled seductively at Naruto. The blonde just looked at her for a second before opening his mouth to start a conversation. "Hello there, beautiful." He spoke out somewhat nonchalantly, but that had to be the worst pickup line he had ever said to a woman. But he had no choice but to go with it. "What is a refined lady such as yourself doing here with this boring me?" "I don't know, maybe I just want to find someone to talk to, I guess." "What about you then?" the woman asked softly and leaned the side of her head on the back of her hand as she put her elbow on the table and tilted her head to look at him, allowing her silver hair to frame her face like a work of art. "Well, I'm just trying to drink it all away." Naruto chuckled, more to himself than to the woman. "Do you want to join me, miss?" "Lucifuge, Graphia Lucifuge." The silver-haired woman, Graphia, leaned forward and introduced herself to him seductively, making him smile a bit at her obvious attempt. "Would you like to tell me what your story is, Mr. Naruto Uzumaki?" Smiling at her, Naruto then finished his entire drink in one gulp, but he never questioned how she already knew his name. "Here you go, everything's fixed." "Oh, thank you, Naruto-kun." The old woman smiled brightly. "You're welcome, Oba-san. I'm happy that I can help you," Naruto said as he stood up and headed out, taking his tools with him. "See you later then, Oba-san." With that, he ran out of the house before the old lady could find some way to repay him, even though fixing her water pipe was one thing he had done for her. After a moment, Naruto slowed down and then started walking down the street, enjoying the warm sunlight of a new day. His mind drifted back to that silver-haired woman he met 2 days ago at the club in Vegas, who he later had spent a hot and passionate night with him, having sex from night till morning. It was the best night that he had had in a while. Graphia was truly incredible. Naruto loved his luck with the woman. Jiraiya used to say that it was as good as his luck with money, but back then Naruto didn't believe him one bit. In half a month and he had already met 4 beautiful, lovely, and breathtakingly attractive women. It was all thanks to them that he had finished the next volume of the Ika Ika series. It's still hard for Naruto to believe that there's a woman that could keep up with his stamina, but it was clear to him that she wasn't ordinary human, and so did the other 3. After meeting a hot, crimson-haired young woman and a blonde nun with healing powers, he couldn't find himself surprised at the situation anymore. But it was rather strange, to say the least, considering that he had never met someone like them up until now. Surely, he would remember them, especially if they were drop-dead gorgeous like Rias or Graphia. Could it be that he had met them somewhere around 200 years ago? And the reason he couldn't remember meeting them was because of his memories lost? It was strange, because he had lost 200 years of memories, not 2,000 or 20,000 years of it. Surely if these beings had been around for quite some times, then he would have met them at least once in his life. "Oi, out of the way!" Deep in thought, Naruto didn't notice the boy with brown hair and a rather lecherous face that he recognized as Issei Hayato of Ko Academy's perverted trio flying toward him on his bike while screaming in terror. Naruto's mind instantly kicked into action with his years of experience, calculating the best way to dodge the incoming object that would most likely crash into him in just a few seconds. He had 2 options. The first was to jump into the air to avoid the boy, but he would have to do so really high to get out of the way. There were people on the street, so he would draw some unwanted attention. The second option was to stop the incoming bike with his strength, which might have been next to impossible for a normal human. All of this happened in just a millisecond. Naruto then blinked when the boy was about to crash into him and took the always obvious third option. The blonde took a step to the side and allowed the perverted boy and his bike to dash past him harmlessly before crashing into the wall behind them with Issei flying right into the garbage bin. Rias Gremery's jaw nearly dropped to the ground in shock at what she just saw. She had expected Naruto to do some superhuman jump or stop the bike with his body or something like that, but all that he did was stepping out of the way like it was the most obvious thing to do in the world and let Issei crash into the wall behind him. Looking at him as he walked over to check on Issei, she couldn't help but wonder if he was as special as what she had thought him to be, remembering the conversation that she had had with her elder sister a few days back. Flashback. Rias was walking towards the main office Lilith Castle in deep thought. She had just reincarnated Issei Hayadu into a devil and used up all her pawn pieces to do so, which brought joy to her when she realized she might have gotten a strong servant yet at the same time feeling confused as to why he needed all of her pawns. So with that in mind, Rias had left to the underworld to meet her sister, who was currently one of the 4 leaders of the devil faction. She had contacted her beforehand, and if there was anyone that could help her or at least give her an advice on how to handle Issei and the current situation with the fallen angels in her territory, that would be Riria Lucifer, formerly Gremery, her elder sister. Riria-sama, please return to work immediately. When Rias was about to knock her hand on the door, she froze at the voice of Graphia Lucifuge, her sister's queen and the second most powerful woman on the underworld. No matter how many years had passed, she would never get used to the cold and chilling voice that always frightened Rias, especially if those words were directed to her. But fortunately, the victim of Graphia's silent wrath wasn't her this time. Mao, Graphia-chan, can you cut me some slack? Rias-chan is coming to visit me, you know. Hearing her name, Rias opened the door and stepped into the room, looking at the woman who was lying on the couch in a fancy robe that embraced her sensual curves nicely. She had long, flowing crimson hair, even longer than Rias, and bright blue-green eyes just like her sister's. In addition, her face was almost the same as Rias, causing everyone that saw them for the first time to mistake them as twins, but even the younger Gremery had to admit that Riria was so much more beautiful than her, adding to the fact that she was considered to be the most beautiful devil. Even her sister's voluptuous figure made hers and her best friend Akino's look modest in comparison. Hearing footsteps, Riria Lucifer turned her eyes slightly to see her sister walking into the room, and then in a blink of an eye, Rias found herself being hugged tightly and her face being sandwiched between 2 massive mounds. Rias-chan. You really came! Riria cried out in happiness, her sister complex going into overdrive at the sight of her beloved sister. I was so worried that you couldn't make it like the last time. Get away from me, Winnie-same! Rias cried out in annoyance as she tried to push her sister away from her, but found it hard because Riria's grip, while it wasn't hurting her at all, was really strong. Her hands, while trying to find her sister's shoulders to push her away, accidentally grabbed a handful of her sister's large with so much more to spare, making the older woman let out a soft moan. Ah, how daring of you, Rias-chan! Riria said with a blushing face. If you want, we could. Her speech was cut short when she felt a hand silently landing on top of her head, and grabbing a fistful of her hair. Both Riria and Rias gulped swallowed hard when they felt Graphia's cold, menacing aura. Mercy? The red-haired woman asked nervously as she turned her head around to look at her best friend and queen. No. With a calm yet deadly tone, Graphia sealed her mistress' fate. A spanking later. I'm so sorry for Riria-sama's behavior, Rias-sama. Graphia bowed her head down and said in her usual monotone. Behind her, Riria was rubbing her ass with a tear at corner of her left eye, still feeling a bit sore from the harsh spanking Graphia had just given her. You're so mean, Graphia-chan. Riria whined as she stood up. Graphia truly never held back whenever she delivered punishment. So what do you want to talk about, Rias-chan? The boy we talked about the last time I was here. I reincarnated and turned him into a devil, Wani-sama. Rias said and took out a stack of document from her bag. He was killed by one of fallen angels in the area, so I had to save him. It took me all 8 of my pawns to bring him back. Those are his files and everything we have found out about him. Now that is interesting. 8 pieces for just an ordinary boy. A Longinus sacred gear perhaps? Riria wondered as she walked to her desk, handing Graphia the document so she could remind her to read it later. She still had some paperwork to do before she could help her sister with her business. Is there anything else I can help you with? Oh yeah, I almost forgot, Wani-sama. Rias began. Her mind went back to a certain blonde-haired ramen chief that had become a friend of her recently. Do you know anyone by the name of Naruto Uzumaki? She knew it was stupid to ask the question since it was unlikely that her sister would know anyone by that name. But to her surprise, both Riria and, surprisingly enough, Graphia reacted rather violently to the name. As Graphia dropped the document about Issei she had wanted to place down on her king's desk, Riria's eyes widened, and her face paled a little before she stumbled to sit down on her chair. "Wani-sama, Wani-sama," Rias called, but Riria didn't look like she was listening. Then slowly, the older redhead turned her head and asked her in a very low tone. "It's not possible. Why, you're kidding me, right, Rias-chan? Please tell me that you just heard that name from somewhere." I met him, Wani-sama, near my school. He said he just moved into town a few days ago." Rias answered honestly with her voice wavering a bit, not expecting her sister to react like this. Riria's eyes widened and gulped nervously, before she asked, "And Naruto Uzumaki, did he have blonde hair and whiskered cheeks?" She asked with a hopeful tone, her eyes becoming glassy. "Yes, Wani-sama." Rias nodded her head and Riria's eyes widened once again. Rias could see some hope slowly appearing in her sister's eyes. "Rias, did he mention anything about me?" In a blink of an eye, Riria was standing before her sister, grabbing Rias by her shoulders while nearly crying out, "Please tell me." "And no, Wani-sama, he didn't, and I don't think there's anything special about him. He's a normal human," Rias said nervously, making her sister's eyes widen, and then she slumped down to the floor. "I knew it," Riria muttered quietly to herself, and wiped the tears out of her eyes. "He really is gone," she muttered sadly, while Grafia just looked down, her hands gripping the front of her maid outfit tightly. "Wani-sama," Rias began softly as she kneeled down beside her sister, "are you?" "Don't worry, Rias-tan, I'm fine." Riria wiped the tears away and shakily stood up, letting out a soft smile and kissed the top of her little sister's head. "Now if you excuse me, I got a job to do or else Grafia-chan will get angry at me." Seeing no room for rebuttal, Rias stood up, bowing her head down to her sister, and then left the room. But before she fully closed the door, she saw Grafia looking up and walking toward the crimson-haired Mao, and decided to stay for a bit longer, not caring if she was discovered or not. "Riria-sama, please listen to me, maybe that's really him," Rias heard Grafia say with a hopeful tone, a kind of tone that Rias had only heard from the silver-haired maid on rare occasions. "No, I'm sure that it's just another descendant of Naruto. The chance is low, but we have met one that looked like him before, remember? That person is long gone now, and we can't do anything about it," she heard her sister whispering to her maid. "But I saw he died with my own eyes." "But he's immortal, Riria-sama, he might have come back. And he said he would." "It was just a stupid promise. Plus, the weapon that he used, it was designed to kill immortal being, keep them from coming back." "But Naruto-sama." Slap! Ria's eyes widened in shock and raised a hand to cover her mouth when she heard the sound of a slap, falling by what seemed to be Grafia falling onto down. She couldn't believe that her sister just struck her best friend. The two of them was so close. Rias would never have thought her sister was capable of doing something like that. "Shut up," she heard her sister say in a cold and deadly tone. "Don't you dare say his name again, Grafia. Where were you when he decided to sacrifice his own life for Millie Cass? Where were you when he fought to protect the underworld? Where were you, huh? He's dead. Naruto Uzumaki is dead." And then she heard her sister break down crying. Rias saw Grafia walking over on her knees and embracing her master comfortingly. Rias couldn't stand outside of the door, listening to her sister sobbing and crying. End flashback. After that, she had tried every way she knew to dig into the matter, even going as far as asking her parents about Naruto Uzumaki. To say she had gotten the same reaction from her parents was an understatement, and Rias had been met with the same answer when she asked who he was. Like Grafia, the two of them did not try to deny the possibilities of him being alive. It was quite clear now that her family knew about Naruto, and he must be close to them. Next, she had tried to look into the history books of devils, anything she could get her hands on to find out who exactly was Naruto Uzumaki, but in the end, her effort was fruitless. Rias shook her head rapidly to clear all the thoughts out in her mind because she was coming closer and closer to Naruto. She had realized looking right through her was something Naruto was very good at. He could always tell if something was troubling her, and right now, she had a feeling her new friend would realize immediately she was the one who had asked Issei to crash into Naruto to test him. "Oh heyo! Naruto-kun," Rias called out to the blonde who was trying to help Issei back to his feet. Looking at his bruised head, she couldn't help but feel bad that she had asked Issei to do something like that. "Issei, are you hurt?" "I'm okay, Bucho. Don't worry about me," the pervert openly declared. "Oh heyo, Rias-chan." Naruto grinned brightly at her before he casted his eyes to Issei. "You know this kid?" "Yeah, he is a member of my club." Rias nodded her head before turning her attention to Issei. "You sure you are okay, Issei? Why don't you head back to school and visit the nurse office?" "Why yeah, I think I will need to do that." Issei nodded his head before grabbing his bike. Without a pause, he climbed on it and paddled away, leaving Naruto behind with Rias. Want me to walk you home, milady? Naruto asked gentlemanly, a charming smile on his face as he turned his attention over to Rias, who giggled softly at his act before nodding. Allow me to show you the way. And with that, the duo began to walk to Rias' apartment. So, Rias-chan, how was your day? Naruto asked the crimson-haired girl. Oh, just a normal thing. My sister tried to annoy me again. Riria Wanisama sent me a massive pillow that looked exactly like her because she wants me to remember her when I go to sleep. Like, seriously? Rias asked with an annoyed tone, making Naruto laugh. Not even a day later her sister had returned to her normal self, but it was hard for Rias to tell if she was truly feeling okay. Wow, she must love you a whole lot to do something like that, Naruto asked with an amused tone. In a way, maybe, Rias huffed. She wasn't a little girl anymore, and yet her sister still insisted on treating her like one. It was annoying to say the least. What about you, Naruto-kun? How was your day? Rias turned her head to the blonde and asked him curiously. Nothing interesting really, Naruto shook his head and a huge grin appeared on his face as he continued, but guess what, I'm going to join Ko Academy next week, cool huh? It was something that he had decided to do, since Ko had so many beautiful young women and he literally had nothing else to do, besides selling ramen whenever he was free. Really, Naruto-kun? Rias smiled brightly as Naruto nodded his head. I hope you will get sorted into the same class as I am, you're the same age as me, right? Oh, I can't wait to introduce you to my friends. Naruto chuckled seeing Rias' happy face, she looked so beautiful like this. If only she knew that he would not share a class with her as a fellow student. After that, it did not take it long for Naruto and Rias to arrive at the latter's apartment, where he then waited for her to go in before heading to the nearest restaurant for foods, feeling a bit hungry. Once he was there, his eyes then widened in surprise when he saw a familiar blonde-haired girl standing in front of the restaurant's door, looking rather nervous and indecisive over whether she should enter or not. Oh, Asia-chan! Naruto called out to the girl in Italian while waving his arm widely to the girl. Uzumaki-san? Asia said in surprise when Naruto, who was pleased to hear that her Japanese had improved and realized someone at the church must have taught her, walked over and stopped right in front of her with his hands in his jacket's pockets before her face softened into a beautiful and innocent smile. It's good to see you again, Uzumaki-san. She bowed her head down to him. Me too, Asia-chan, and no need to bow, Naruto said cheerfully to the girl and turned his eyes slightly to the restaurant. You want to come in? No, Uzumaki-san, Asia said with a small blush on her face. You don't have any Japanese money, do you? Naruto scratched his chin while looking at Asia's face, lowering his head down to her eyes level, making her blush deepen. Don't worry, let's go in, I will treat you for dinner. He patted her head softly before taking her hand, pulling her with him into the restaurant, not leaving any room for her to decline his offer. Naruto sat down with Asia at a table nearby the window and ordered an extra big burger for her, who seemed like she would need a lot of nutrition to survive and grow up. Not that he minded his friend having a cute, petite body like this. Asia took the burger nervously into her hands and looked at Naruto in wonder. Just eat it however you want. The whole thing is edible. The blonde nodded his head and smiled to her, making Asia blush again. She brought the burger closer to her mouth, and she took a small bite. So good, she moaned and began to chew gently. It is so delicious. Naruto chuckled at the girl's words as she took another bite. You sound like you haven't eaten a burger before, Naruto said, raising an eyebrow as she stopped eating and looked at him. Well, at my old church we only eat bread and soups, Asia answered while smiling softly. I sometimes eat pasta and vegetables too. For real? What are they thinking anyway? Naruto announced dramatically, making Asia laugh before he took his own food, which was pizza, and started to eat too. They didn't talk much after that, as Naruto wanted Asia to enjoy the burger to her heart content, noticing that she had been looking at him the whole time with curiosity in her eyes. She didn't understand why he was so kind to her like that, but the short amount of time they had spent together allowed Asia to tell that he was a good person and had a good heart. In fact, Naruto was the only one who had showed kindness to her since the day that happened. Finished with his pizza, Naruto looked at Asia and saw that she had just finished with the burger too. As he ordered drinks for both of them, Naruto noticed the little nun was looking at the giant roller coaster in the distance. Smiling at the girl, he silently brought his hand in front of her face and snapped his fingers, knocking her out of her trance. Yes? Uzumaki-san? Asia turned her head to him but was met with a poke to her forehead. Aui, what's that for? She asked while holding her forehead. First, young miss, enough with that Uzumaki-san nonsense because it's making me sound like an old man. Please call me something different. Naruto mentally congratulated himself because how ironic his statement was. Second, do you want to go to that amusement park? No, Yuzuaki. Asia winced when Naruto poked her forehead again and glared playfully at her. Naruto and Ai-sama. But she was caught off guard when Naruto caught her wrist and pulled her up to her feet. Let's go, Asia-chan. I guess you never went to one of those before, right? Naruto asked with a grin, and to say the least, he felt kind of happy that a cute-looking girl like her called him an Ai-sama. He had always wanted to have a younger sibling as cute as she was for so long. Wait, Naruto and Ai-sama. Asia called out, but Naruto had already led out of the restaurant, leaving behind a good amount of money to the waitress to cover up their meal and heading to the amusement park while making sure that he didn't run too fast so Asia could follow. They arrived at their destination shortly, and Naruto wasted no time to buy 2 tickets for the two of them to enter the park, heading straight to the roller coaster where Asia had taken a trip of her life, screaming so loud that her throat was a bit sore after that. Nonetheless, it was the best experience she had ever had. From there, the two went from stand to stand, with Naruto beating everything quite easily. The young nun had never had so much fun before in her life, even though she spent the first few minutes standing outside cheering for him before the older blonde decided to let her play as well. While she had found happiness in using her power to cure others, it was nothing in comparison to her time with Naruto right now. What is it, Naruto and Ai-sama? Asia, holding a big stick of cotton candy in her hand, asked the blonde next to her when she saw him looking around. I need to go to the toilet, Naruto said while scratching the back of his head, laughing awkwardly while Asia just looked at him. I'll be back as soon as I can. After that, Naruto quickly drifted off to relieve himself. Asia relaxed into the bench near her and began to eat the cotton candy Naruto had bought her while patiently waiting for Naruto to return. A sad expression slowly made its way to her face as she remembered what had happened to her a few weeks ago, but looking at the candy she could not help but feel a little warmer inside of her chest. She used to have everyone's love because she was the holy maiden, whose power could heal any wound, and because she always had a strong but innocent heart. But this was the first time someone had given her kindness without asking anything in return, even though they had just met a few times and barely knew each other. Asia wondered how Naruto would react when he found out about her. Would he still feel the same? Would he still buy her this cotton candy if he had known? Before she could go further into her thought, Asia realized she was looking at the clearest and most beautiful blue eyes she had ever seen in her life. Hello, Asia-chan, are you in there? Asia's cheeks suddenly turned a deep shade of red as she realized Naruto had returned and was looking at her with their faces a mere inch from each other. And they are Naruto and Ai-sama. Asia spluttered, trying to lean further back but found herself couldn't because her back had already pressed against the back of the bench. You have been spacing out for a whole minute, Asia-cha. Sorry for making you wait. Naruto chuckled while scratching the back of his head as he stood up. Anyways, let's get going, Asia-chan, there are still a lot of fun things left to do. Without waiting for Asia to answer, he quickly grabbed her wrist again and pulled her to the nearest game station as Asia smiled softly at Naruto. Though she couldn't help but feel something a bit different from Naruto. Break. We sure played a lot today, Naruto said with a huge smile on his face as he sat down on a bench outside of the amusement park with Asia, who couldn't stop smiling as she played with the stuffed teddy bear Naruto had won for her in a shooting competition. Truth to be told, he would rather spend all his time of a day having fun like this. He had also had a lot of fun seeing Asia's reaction when they went into the game centers and other shops. The little nun had never experienced those things in her life, while Naruto himself was very happy that he could give her such a pleasant experience. Why yes, we did. Asia nodded her head, getting a laugh from Naruto. They had spent all day playing, eating, and playing again. Of course, Naruto didn't have any problem with paying all the bills. Asia, after the third set of games, had started to understand that she couldn't argue with Naruto once he had made up his mind and decided to just go along with what he had in mind. It's already evening and both of them had decided to take a short break before Naruto would escort her back to the church. Last thing that he wanted to do was to let Asia head back to the church alone in the middle of the night. I hope you had a good time, Asia-chan, Naruto said softly to her. Yes, Naruto and Ai-sama, I had a great time thanks to you. She smiled beautifully at him before letting out a small sigh. Naruto turned his head to look at her with curiosity. With the amount of time he had spent with Asia, it was really strange to see a sad expression on her face. Then, to Naruto's shock, a single teardrop fell from her eyes, and slowly, more tears started flowing from her eyes. She then put her hands to cover her face and started to cry. Whoa, Asia-chan, what's wrong? Naruto began to panic, his hands flying around him as he tried to comfort her. Asia turned her teary eyes at him. No, and Naruto and Ai-sama, It's just I was so happy. That was the first time ever in my life that I was able to experience so much happiness. But and with that, she began to tell him a story about her, the story of a girl who was once called the Holy Maiden. In a certain region in Europe, there was a girl who was discarded by her parents. She was raised in a church nearby by a nun along with other orphans. The girl, who was a strong believer in the church, received a special power at the age of 8. She healed a wounded puppy, and a person from the Catholic Church witnessed it by chance. From there on, her life changed. The girl was taken to the main Catholic Church, and she was symbolized by many as the Holy Maiden because of her healing power. She used her power to heal many believers, and they were told it was a power of divine protection. Rumors brought rumors, and she was respected as a Holy Maiden, even without her approval. She had no dissatisfaction with how she was treated. People from the church were kind, and she didn't hate healing people. She instead was happy that her power was of use. The girl was thankful for her power, which was bestowed to her by God. But she was a bit lonely. She didn't have any friends she could open up to. Everyone treated her nicely and was nice to her, but there was no one willing to become her friend. She understood why. She knew that they were looking at her power as something irregular. They didn't look at her as a human but as a creature that could heal humans. But one day it changed. By coincidence, there was a devil nearby and she healed it. Devil? Naruto's eyes snapped wide open. He didn't understand it. Asia just said to him that she had healed a devil, and if she healed one devil then there could more out there. There might be a whole world of supernatural beings that he didn't know about. And that was the part that made him wary. There were only 2 things he didn't know about, and it was clear that he had found out something to add to that list. Naruto then cleared his mind and continued to listen to her story. A wounded devil, the girl couldn't ignore it. She thought that even if it was a devil, she had to heal him. It was her kindness that made her take such an action. But that changed her life forever. One of the people from the church saw that incident and notified others of the church. The ministers of the church were shocked about it. A power that can heal devils. Something absurd like that cannot happen. The power of healing can only heal the followers of God. Yes, several people had the power to heal. But the power to heal devils was out of the question. The people of the church thought it was common sense that the power of healing wouldn't work on fallen angels and devils. Apparently, a similar incident had happened in the past. The power to heal fallen angels and devils that was not protected by God but that was feared as the power of a witch. So, the people saw her as a heretic. Damn witch that heals devils. The girl who was respected as a holy maiden was then feared as a witch and the Catholic Church abandoned her. She didn't have anywhere to go, and the organization of stray exorcists picked her up. In other words, she had to get divine protection from the fallen angels. But the girl never forgot to pray to God. She also never forgot to thank God. Even so, the girl was abandoned. God didn't save her. What shocked her the most was that there was not even a single person in the church that was willing to defend her. There was no one who cared about her now. It's because I didn't pray enough. It's because I'm clumsy and stupid that I can't even eat a burger by myself, Asia said, wiping her tears while laughing. Naruto was trying his best not to snap, but he was barely controlling his anger by now. He wanted nothing more than to find and kill those people, or at least make them regret the day they abandoned Asia, who had done nothing more than doing what she thought was right. This is also a trial that the Lord gave me. Since I'm a clumsy nun, the Lord gave me this trial, so I have to endure it. She was laughing as if she was talking to herself. You don't have to say anything anymore, Naruto said slowly while gently putting a hand on her shoulder. I'm sure I will make lots of friends one day. I have a dream. I want to go buy flowers with a friend, buying books and talk. Her eyes were filled with tears now. Naruto looked at her with a sad smile on his face. She must have been bottling this up the whole time. She has been waiting for God to save her the whole time and has been hiding her feelings all along. If God really existed, and there was a high chance of that, Naruto wanted to have a talk with that old geezer. Asia, listen to me. Naruto looked at Asia and gently wiped her tears from her face, smiling softly at her. Cheer up, because you don't have to be alone in this world. I understand that you now have the protection of these stray exorcists, but trust me, they are not good people. After all, they are kicked from their churches and became stray for good reasons. You can come and live with me, Asia-chan. This was exactly his problem. No matter how many years had passed, no matter how many times he had hurt himself because he allowed himself to grow close to those who would eventually die one day, Naruto Uzumaki could never stop himself from getting attracted to those that made him feel like he was not alone in this world. You can stay with me from now on at my home. We can become friend. You don't have to suffer this pain alone, no matter how strong you believe in God. If he won't answer you, then I will, Naruto said with a strong voice with a fist on his chest. Why? Asia asked. Why are you willingly going that far for me? We barely know each other. That doesn't matter. Asia, we spent the whole day together. We talked right, laughed, and have fun together, right? Then it makes you and I friends. No, we are like a family now. You can be my little sister. From now on, if you want, we will talk when we want to, we will play when we wish to. I will also buy a lot of books for you or flowers if that's what you want, and all that I ask from you is one thing: smile. Naruto grinned. But Asia put her hand on her mouth, and once again started to shed tears. But this time, her tears were ones of joy. Nisama, I have no common sense. I can teach you, it's not that hard. I can't speak Japanese. I also don't know about its culture. I will teach you that too. Leave it to me. I also don't know what to talk about with a friend. You had talked to me normally for a whole day. That was fine. We were already talking like friends. Naruto smiled. Or siblings if you asked me. Will you become my friend? Even better, I will become your family, Asia. See. But before he could finish that sentence, Asia suddenly swung her arms around his neck and hugged him tightly, burying her face into his chest, and kept saying the words, "Thank you," over and over again. Naruto just let out a small smile and wrapped his arms around her as well, trying his best to comfort her. What a heartwarming scene! A gentle and feminine voice snapped both of them out of their moment. Naruto turned his eyes to the source of the voice. His expression didn't change the slightest, but he had to admit he was rather surprised to see that the one in front of them was a girl, a young and very attractive young woman at that. Wearing a short black dress with a small, light purple jacket on top. She looked rather cute. Miss Rainier. Asia turned her eyes to the young black-haired woman and said with a surprised tone. Well, I see that you have found a rather fine-looking man for yourself, Asia-chan. Rainier licked her lips seductively. And hello to you too, Rainier-san. Naruto said, his voice remaining calm. I take it that she is someone from the church, Asia-chan? Asia nodded her head and quickly snuggled closer into his chest like she was trying to hide from the black-haired girl. Naruto shifted his eyes to Asia and then back at Rainier. And I take it that she doesn't like you? That girl, Asia, is our personal belonging. Can I have her back? Asia, don't you know it's futile to run away? Rainier asked sweetly. No. I don't want to go back. You're all a bunch of murderers. Also, you people did things to me, Asia said, finishing the last part with a hushed tone, and Naruto immediately knew that something must have happened in that church to make Asia sound scared like that. Please don't say that, Asia-chan. Your sacred gear is essential for our plan. So please come back with me. I also took the time to look for you. Don't cause me any more trouble than you already had. Reina said and began to take a few steps forward but stopped when she saw Naruto stand up from the bench and gently push Asia behind him. Sorry, but Asia-chan doesn't want to come with you, Naruto said smirking, so can I ask you to leave peacefully? Shut it, human. Someone like you doesn't know anything should bow down and lick my feet every time you see me. Rainier snarled with her smirk. Now Naruto could see that her face didn't look that cute, so I think I should give you the honor of seeing my true form. And then, to his surprise, Rainier's appearance shifted. In a flash of light, the cute-looking, high school girl that stood in front of him had grown taller, taking on a more mature appearance, and her eyes changed, taking on a sharper look. Her clothing also changed dramatically, now consisting of black, leather straps going over and under her, a thong-like piece held around her hips by 3 thin straps, gloves that run right up her arms with small lengths of chains hanging from them, shoulder guard-like objects on her shoulders with 3 large spikes sprouting from her right shoulder, and black, thigh-high heel boots. A pair of black wings shot out from her back, making Naruto's eyes widened. Behold, human, this is my true form. Rainier shouted dramatically with a deeper voice than before. I see the look of surprise on your face is because of seeing a being more superior than you. No, Naruto let out a sarcastic chuckle while seizing her up in interest. What a girl! Say, are you into bondage? Rainier had the urge to facepalm. Clearly, this human does not know anything about the supernatural world, and yet the first thing he asked her was if she was into bondage. Shut up. I find these clothes to be comfortable. Rainier snapped as light began to gather in her open palm and then formed into a spear, while Naruto just continued to rub his chin thoughtfully. It had taken the color of dark pink and was radiating a large amount of power. Now, I hate to say this, but please die. With that said, Reiner threw the spear and aimed it directly at Naruto's heart. His eyes widened in surprise and only had enough time to push Asia, who cried out in shock, out of the way before jumping to avoid the spear. But before he could do anything, another light spear flew at him and impaled Naruto through his chest, and pinned him to the tree behind them. The young nun looked at Naruto in shock when the spear impaled him. Tears slowly fell from her eyes once again as she realized what just happened. Naruto's eyes turned widened in shock. His blood began to boil as he looked towards the ground, hands clenching into fists so tightly that blood started to leak out. The light spear had stabbed him through his chest and into his heart, and it was making his body hurt like hell. Darkness slowly took over his vision as Naruto began to close his eyes. Now please, come here Asia-chan, let's return. Asia didn't move. Her feet refused to buck. Her mind still processed the fact that her one and only friend had just been killed right in front of her, all because she had become friend with him. Just because of her, Naruto had to die. Tears streaming down her face as she begged God to save her blonde friend, even though she knew it was too late now. Then, her eyes turned wide when she felt a hand pat her head gently. Now, don't cry Asia-chan. A familiar voice rang out softly, making Asia's look up and she gasped in surprise, tears don't soothe you, you know. Reiner felt her jaw drop to the ground in shock. Her eyes glanced rapidly from the dead blonde impaled to the tree to the one who had just appeared in a flash of yellow in front of Asia, standing with his hand on Asia's head with a soft smile on his face. She didn't feel anything other than a small burst of strange energy coming from that yellow flash, but it was clear that the man in front of her was the same one as the dead man pinned to the tree. What's happening? Reiner couldn't conceal her shock anymore, as she pointed shakily to the perfect replica of the dead man. Are you his twin or something, and how can you appear so suddenly like that? A ninja should never reveal his secret, just like magician. Naruto smirked and seriously, Reiner-chan, did you really think that I'm a normal human? Reiner widened her eyes in shock when she suddenly heard his voice coming from behind her. She didn't have any time to react as Naruto grabbed both of her wings and stomped his foot into her back, roughly pushing her to the ground. The fallen angels cried out in pain as her face hit the ground hard. Surprised? Reiner turned her head slightly to look behind her, and found herself speechless when she saw another blonde standing behind her with a wide grin on his face. How? She stuttered. The Naruto that was protecting Asia walked closer to her with said nun following closely behind him, looking as confused as the fallen angel that just a moment ago was ready to take her away. You think I did not notice that someone had been following Asia-chan from the beginning? Naruto asked casually as he lowered himself down in front of her. All I have to do is give Asia an excuse to leave and prepare for your arrival without you getting suspicious. Something like, I need to go to the toilet. Asia and Reiner's eyes both widened in shock as they remembered what Naruto had said when they were in the amusement park. Now, what should I do with you? Naruto asked while looking at the fallen angel. Because you let Asia play the whole day with me. I won't kill you, but it's not like I am not gonna hurt you either. Reiner swallowed heavily as she looked at the grin on his face. Whatever this man was, he's not normal. Break. Naruto let out a chuckle as he kicked the door close with his foot, leaving a screaming, but tied up Reiner sitting on the floor of the closet. To his pleasure, she had been extremely cooperated. When he threatened to torture her, the fallen angel had spilled everything she knew to him. From her, he had learned quite a lot about the supernatural world and specifically the 3 biblical factions, which confused him because after at least thousands and thousands of years of living, he didn't know shit about any of them. The angels, fallen angels, devils, gods, they all had existed since the beginning of the world, and yet he couldn't remember anything about them. However, his lack of knowledge was not his current main concern. The real issue now was to handle the other fallen angels at the church, and the stray exorcists they had recruited to serve them. As long as they were still around, Asia was still in danger. Furthermore, he was keeping Reiner as a hostage. If they cared enough about their comrade, Naruto was certain that the moment they knew about her capture, they would come to rescue her and take Asia back by force. The blonde stopped to check the other spare room he had in his home, and opened the door just a little, peered inside, and saw Asia sleeping peacefully on the bed. He closed the door quietly and walked in without making even a sound. The young nun had already had a very tiring day, and Naruto didn't want to wake her up. Because from now on, Asia would be living with him. She would be his little sister. This decision was a very difficult one for Naruto. He knew better than anyone that with his immortality, he would live forever while Asia, while she's still young, would eventually grow old and die one day. She would be just like anyone he had cared about, and he would be the one getting hurt afterward. 100 years is a very long time for a human, but for Naruto, it was short, so short. But he had promised Asia that he would protect her and care for her. No matter how many years had it been since the day he archived immortality, a promise was a promise, and Naruto Uzumaki would never back down from it. With that thought in mind, Naruto walked to his room and opened his wardrobe. After looking for a few seconds, the blonde pulled out a small orange scroll, something that he hadn't touched for a long time. He had something to do tonight, and he would make sure he did it properly. Ready, everyone? Rias turned back to look at her peerage, who nodded at her confidently and prepared themselves for their mission. Earlier that evening, Issei had returned to the club room with a pale face, saying that he had faced a stray exorcist that killed his client just because he had made a connection with her servant. Rias couldn't ignore these transgressions any longer. She had known about the group of fallen angels and stray exorcists making a base of operations at the abandoned church in her territory, but decided to not attack them or do anything because she believed that any reckless action could easily cause another war to break out between the factions. But after hearing that a stray exorcist had threatened and hurt one of her servants, she had reported it back to her older sister, and after a long conversation with Azazel, the leader of Grigori, and Michael, the representative of heaven, Riria had given her the green light to deal with them any way she wanted to. Once everything was in order, Ria set up the magic circle, and teleported herself and her peerage to the front yard of the abandoned church. However, the moment that they appeared, Rias and Aquino could immediately tell something was wrong. There was the smell of blood lingering in the air. Looking back at her queen with a puzzled look, Rias led her peerage into the building, and what that they found made Issei vomit immediately. There was body were laying everywhere, headless and limbless bodies of stray exorcists laying all around the church in the worst conditions Rias or Aquino had ever seen in their lives. Blood and organs were splattered everywhere, on the walls, the floor, and even the ceiling. As Kiba helped Issei recover, Rias and the rest of her peerage began to spread out and look around to see if there was any survivor. But in the end, there was none. Bucho, everyone. Aquino's quiet voice drew Rias's attention, and as quickly as she could, the crimson-haired ruined princess walked to her best friend with Kaneko soon joining her. Said white-haired girl's expression didn't change in the slightest, but Rias, who had taken care of her for so long, understood that Kaneko was as shocked as everyone else. Kiba soon appeared with Issei's arm over his shoulders, walking right beside her with her newest servant looking really pale. She couldn't blame the brunette. This scene would haunt him for the rest of his life. Aquino, what's wrong? Rias asked. Look. Aquino pointed to the wall in front of them. And Rias' eyes widened when at what she saw. Whoever did this, they are sending a special message to those on heaven. Hanging from the wall in a cross-like fashion was the fallen angel that attacked Issei a few days ago. His wings ripped off his back, which was laying on the floor below him. His eyes were still open, but lifeless, and Rias could see the fear and terror he had felt before his life ended. The redhead focused her eyes on the things that were impaling his wrists, keeping him suspended in the air. They were kunai, a shinobi's signature weapons. 3 days had passed since the day he had taken Asia in and adopted her as his little sister, who had been nothing but a beaming light of hope in his dull and boring immortal life. However, it had also been 3 days since the night he slaughtered those stray exorcists that had claimed to be taking care of Asia, while in truth they had caused her nothing but pain and suffering. To say it was a massacre was an understatement. Naruto had shown those who dare stood in his way absolutely no mercy. There had been a total of 21 stray exorcists, but he'd spared no one, because all that Naruto had cared about that night had been about removing them, all those who had hurt Asia emotionally and physically, permanently from her life, making sure that they could never bother her ever again. Except for that gentleman-looking fallen angel, that night at the church he had met 2 other of his kinds with the names of Calawarner and Middlet, who were both as bloodthirsty and as sadistic as their male counterpart. Naruto had attempted to kill them like what he had done to Donosike, who even now still pissed him off, but before he could do just that, someone had arrived at the scene and stopped him. It was none other than their leader, the Governor-General of the Grigori, leader of the fallen angels, Azazel, who had to be one of the most annoying men he had ever encountered in his life. Let's just say that he did not have the most pleasant conversation with Azazel about how to handle the fallen angels that were still alive, who had disobeyed his order and done things on their own accords. In the end, he had allowed Azazel to take all 3 of the remaining fallen angels away, and punish them however he wished, with the promise of never letting any of them near Asia ever again, else he would pay a visit to their headquarters. With the way Azazel reacted to his threat, it was quite clear the man knew about him, and it did not bode well for Naruto. Nisama, we have another order. A cheerful voice snapped Naruto out of his thoughts, making him turn to look at Asia. Her radiant smile alone was more than enough to brighten his day. "On it, Asia-chan." Asia nodded her head with a cheerful smile and quickly drifted off to serve any customers that needed her services, having gotten used to working as a waitress only after a day and a half at work. Yesterday, when Naruto started his daily business with his ramen stand, Asia had asked him if she could help him with anything so that she could repay him for letting her live with him. Of course, Naruto had refused her offer at first, saying that there was no need for her to do anything, but after seeing the legendary puppy dog eyes from her, he had to shut his mouth and let her come with him. How a girl as socially awkward as his sister could do that trick on such a level, he had absolutely no idea. However, it wasn't like he had anything against it. Before, he had about 40 to 50 customers per day, but when Asia started working, the number had skyrocketed, making them one of the most popular food stand in the area. No one could deny that the food was good too, not when they had a 6'2" male breathing down their neck with a knife, but it was Asia who had been the main attraction, which Naruto believed was good for her too because most of the new customers were boys and girls around her age. At first, she had troubles talking to them, but after a few hours of services and encouragements from Naruto, she was able to break out of her nervous self and started to converse with them normally. He just wished that he could hire some more people to help Asia. He was afraid that she might be pushing herself and doing all that works by herself. After all, his ramen stand would soon no longer just a normal food stand. Naruto-kun. Naruto looked up when he heard the familiar feminine voice belong to Rias Gremory as she walked into his ramen stand. This time, however, she didn't come alone, being accompanied by that extremely busted black-haired girl who had brought him quite a fortune with the newest volume of Ichi Aika Paradise, Gentle Maiden. It had been a great hit, one of the best ever actually. Unconsciously, Naruto pushed the copy of the book deeper into his pocket, which he liked to carry around to remind himself what a successful businessman/author he was. He doubted any high school girl would feel pleased if she found out that she was the inspiration of the female protagonist of an erotic novel unless, of course, she was exactly what he had imagined her to be. "Hello there, Rias-chan, and Akino Himejima. It's a pleasure finally meeting you in person, Uzumaki-san," Akino said with her head bowed slightly. "No need to be so formal. Just call me Naruto, chan." Naruto let out a soft chuckle as he held out his hand, offering it to Akino, who took it and shook hand with him. Naruto, who had become aware of the differences in supernatural beings' signature presences after meeting some of them, could immediately tell that Akino, the buxom young maiden before him, was both a devil and a fallen angel. "What's so funny?" Rias asked, looking at Naruto's smile. "Nothing, Rias-chan, nothing at all," both girls raised an eyebrow as Naruto laughed softly. "I just find that you have a very interesting friend here, Rias-chan, even more so than you are actually." He smirked mysteriously. Rias and Akino gave each other a glance before turning back to Naruto, who went back to prepare the foods for the other customers. What could he possibly mean by that? There was no way he found out the truth about them, right? "Anyway, welcome to Uzumaki's ramen stand." Naruto spread his arms wide while grinning brightly. "What are your orders?" "I will take the usual," Rias said before she sat down at her usual table, right in front of Naruto. "I'll have the same thing as Rias." Akino smiled and sat down with her best friend, leaving Naruto to finish other orders before moving on to them. "So, what do you think?" Rias asked her queen as both of them conversed quietly with each other, completely ignoring the lustful stares from the male population all around them. "He is very odd, like you said?" Akino whispered back. "He's human, but at the same time he's not. Just as Kaneko-chan said, when you paid attention, you could feel a strange presence coming from him." Rias nodded her head in understanding. Akino was actually better at this stuff than her. "Excuse me?" Before the conversation about their new friend could continue, a cheerful voice broke them out of it, and Rias and Akino turned their heads to see a cute blonde smiling at them. What she was wearing, however, caused them to almost jump out of their seats. What's wrong?" Asia asked, suddenly feeling a bit nervous at their reactions. Did she do or say anything wrong to them? Rias and Akino, on the other hand, immediately knew that this girl was from the church because of the outfit she was wearing, with a silver cross necklace around her neck, the aura of a holy being she was giving off. Asia gulped when she realized everyone was looking at them. "Can I have your order, please?" she asked again, nervously bowing her head. Huh? Rias spluttered out. "Don't worry, Asia-chan, give these to them." Appearing at his little sister's side, Naruto said cheerfully and handed Asia 2 bowls of miso ramen. He had saw all that happened and decided to step in to rescue both parties from the awkward situation they had put themselves in. Rias and Akino was devil, half devil for the latter's case, so they would be on alert if someone from the holy background like Asia appeared before them, former or not. Okay, Nisama. Asia nodded her head and carefully put the ramen down to the table. Please enjoy your ramen. She bowed her head down and quickly walked off to do another job. Sorry about that, Naruto-kun, Rias said sheepishly and sat back down to the table with Akino, who bowed her head down in apology. But who is that? That's my little sister, she's adopted. Naruto quickly added before waving his hand with a grin, and don't worry about it. And yeah, please enjoy your meal. Naruto finished before walking back to his station, noticing how Rias and Akino were eating their ramen while eyeing Asia warily. He didn't think if these two girls would hurt Asia unless they were given a reason to, but Naruto would remember to keep an eye out for them nonetheless. The next morning. And I-sama, Asia said nervously while playing with the hem of her school uniform skirt, do you think me going to this school is a good idea? Both blondes were walking on the street leading to Ko Academy, with Naruto wearing his casual outfit while Asia had donned herself in Ko Academy's uniform for girl. Naruto had decided to let Asia attend Ko Academy, the best high school in the area, with him to study and make more friends. The former nun had been really nervous since he made that suggestion and finished the paperwork needed for both of them, but the immortal shinobi didn't feel quite right to leave her at home as he went to Ko Academy, and believed that it was the best way for her to make friends, become more social, and get used to Japan's culture. Don't worry, Asia-chan, he gave her a thumb up, you have me here to watch out for you. Asia nodded her head, feeling somewhat better. She had never gone to school before, having been tutored her whole life by fellow nuns and priests. But to say she didn't look forward to Ko wouldn't be correct either. She really wished this school was exciting as her big brother had claimed it to be. He had said this was the best place for her if she wished to make more friends, and while Naruto had claimed that she would not have any problem doing so, but she really didn't know how to do that at all. After parting with Asia, who had been placed into the second year, Naruto took his schedule and went to his class with a female teacher who had been assigned to show him the way. While she blushed furiously at the blonde walking behind her, Naruto spent the rest of his time admiring the school's facilities, which were truly impressive, practically state-of-the-art based on what he had seen so far. This is your class, Naruto-san, the teacher said as she opened the door for him. Please come with me. With that, he walked in with her, immediately heard a number of gasping sound from the girls, making him smirk slightly. Yes, always these reactions. How many years had it been since the last time he had played this role of life, again? Class, this is Naruto Uzumaki-san and he will be. But before she could finish that, the whole class broke out in chaos, as the students threw questions after questions at him excitedly. Where are you from? What's your favorite food and color? Do you have a girlfriend? Will you sit next to me? Naruto let out a soft chuckle at that, and scanned his eyes around the room for a second before he found the ones he had been looking for. Rias Gremry and Akino Himejima, who were both looking at him with smiles on their face. They were not surprised because Naruto had told Rias of his arrival beforehand, while Akino probably had heard about it from her friend. Nonetheless, the crimson-haired devil seemed quite happy seeing him in her class. You there, the one who wants me to sit next to you? Naruto raised a hand and ended the barrage of questions, looking at the girl who had said that. What is your name? Kazuha Tokiwa, Naruto-kun. So Kazuha-chan, my seat is here, so would you like to move your seat next to mine? Naruto asked, and gestured his hand to the teacher table, making everyone gasp in shock. Even Rias and Akino couldn't help but look at him in surprise. His casual outfit made it look like one of those transfer students who couldn't purchase an academy uniform in time, so no one paid attention to it. Class, from this day on, Naruto Uzumaki-sensei will be your homeroom teacher. The teacher introduced, causing the whole class to cry out in shock while Naruto was smiling and waving his hand at them. He will be teaching math and history, and because Takeda-sensei has too many classes this term, Uzumaki-sensei will be taking care of your PE class as well. Isn't that great? We will be spending a lot of time together. Naruto chirped while clapping his hand. Now pick up your jaws, and start paying attention to what I said. We may be the same age, but that doesn't mean I will go easy on any of you, the blonde said before he picked up a chalk and started writing his name down on the board. His first class started shortly after that. Break. Now if you'll excuse me, Naruto said as he began to back out of the classroom once classes had ended and lunchtime had come. I need to go check on my little sister, she's in the second year. He waved at them and walked out of the classroom, causing the students of his class to whisper to each other in excitement at the thought of their handsome, new teacher having a little sister. Naruto could see that news spread fast after that, as the students of other classes addressed him as teacher as well. The last time he had attended an academy as a teacher, he had used a disguise to look older, but because now he had Asia with him, It would make no sense to her if he used transform to turn into a version of his father or someone like that. It did not take it long for Naruto to arrive at Asia's classroom, not feeling surprised that his innocent little sister was in the same situation as he had been earlier that morning. Asia looked extremely nervous because of all the attention she currently getting from everyone. But as always, the former nun was giving them her best smile which could brighten up anyone's day. Noticing Naruto, Asia raised her hand and waved at him while smiling brightly. Naruto let out a small smile and then did the same, making the students around her gasp and coo in excitement before they proceeded to ask Asia about her relationship with him. When the blonde was about to head in to save his sister and take her out for lunch, his cell phone gone off. Curious, Naruto picked up his phone and saw an unfamiliar number, but felt the need to answer it nonetheless. Naruto Uzumaki here, Naruto said into the phone and then heard a familiar feminine laugh. Surprise, Naruto-sama. Naruto looked at his phone for a second before pressing it back against his ear. One could almost imagine a smile she had on her face from the tone of her voice. Graphia. His voice softened as he remembered the beautiful woman he met at that bar in Las Vegas. How did you get this number? And what's with the Sama shit? Naruto asked her with one hand in his pocket. When he first met Graphia, no matter how beautiful and special she had been, the blonde had thought she would be just another woman in his life. All that they had would be a little fun time together for pleasure, and then the next morning, they would be on their merry way. It had always been this since the day he understood the curses of immortality, so if anything he was a bit displeased that somehow Graphia had been able to get her hands on his number. My, why the cold tone, Naruto-sama? Have you forgotten how you made me submit so easily that night? She let out a soft giggle, making Naruto smile a bit in return. I'm not the one who asked for it. So, what do you want, Graphia? You think I wouldn't recognize myself in the newest volume of the porn novel Ika Paradise series? His eyes widened in surprise. You've done an awfully good job at describing me, Namikaze Minato. His eyes widened once again when he heard his father's name, which he was using to disguise himself as the current author of the series. Actually, I don't know what you're talking about, he replied in a calm tone, knowing the most effective ways to handle the situation. He had been blackmailed by those who almost figured out his real identity in the past. Human with knowledge and intelligence far exceeded that of normal people, so he wouldn't feel surprised if Graphia turned out another one of them, even though he doubted she was someone like that. Sorry to bust the bubble, but I am not the one you are looking for, and if that's all that you call me for, then goodbye. I don't have time to talk. Have a nice day. Wait, Naruto-sama. Naruto knew she would say that. I am actually hoping to have a talk with you. I guess this is important then, Naruto thought before saying. So, where do you want to meet? That night. When he hurried into the bar, Naruto immediately spotted the silver-haired woman, Graphia Lucifuge, who looked as stunning as he had remembered her to be. Graphia was drawing a lot of attention from everyone around her, mostly the opposite sex. She was beautiful and attractive, with her voluptuous body being emphasized by the sleeveless evening dress she was wearing, which had a rather low-cut neckline, showing off a generous amount of her generous bosom, and was split on the left side of her, showing off the smooth, creamy white skin of her killer leg and a portion of her thigh that peeked sensually from beneath her dress. Damn, Naruto thought to himself, as he made his way to her table. Though he had to wonder why she wore such an expensive and impressive-looking dress like that for a situation like this. This could barely be called a date, and Graphia also had no reason to impress him unless, of course, she wished to complicate their relationship. Graphia looked up from the menu in her hands and let a warm smile form on her face as she saw the young man she was waiting for walking toward her. Good evening, Graphia. I hope I didn't make you wait too long, Naruto said as he pulled as a waiter arrived and pulled the chair back for him, allowing Naruto to sit down and face the silver-haired woman, who had made him forget how to breathe for the first time in a very, very long time. Oh no, of course not. I just arrived too, Naruto-sama, Graphia said as she put the menu down and gestured to the bartender to come over. The two then placed their orders. Naruto kept his cool the entire time, while in truth he didn't feel like coming at all. Leaving Asia at home alone was one of the worst moves that he had made in a century. Sure, he had created multiple clones and assigned them at various vantage points around the house to protect her, but it did not make him feel any less anxious, or worry. So, what do you want to talk about? Naruto closed the menu and finally gave his order to the bartender, who left with two others arrived to fill their glasses with wine for them. I hope it doesn't have to do with me being the current author of Ika Paradise, Naruto said, not liking his own tone when he said the word current. I have only realized that only recently, Naruto-sama. You are the only one I know that can read people that well with just one meeting, sex or not. Grafia answered with a small smile. Plus, the name on the book Namikaze Minato, it's your father's name. This is the first time that you use his name. I do think this is the part where you can start telling me who exactly are you. Naruto said with a calm and collected tone, and Grafia didn't act like she was surprised by it either. She's just like Azazel then. Someone who knew a whole lot about him, but he knew nothing about them. Just recently I have had a rather unpleasant encounter with fallen angels and a group of exiled exorcists who reminded me of one of those guys from Star Wars. Naruto made a light joke, but there was nothing funny in his tone. Although, judging from the look on her face, Naruto could tell that Grafia had already known what happened. Choose your words carefully, because I will hate to hurt that pretty face in any way that's not sexual. He finished like it was the most casual thing to say, making Grafia blush a bit. The services then returned with their orders, giving Grafia some seconds to think about what she would say to him. I'm a devil, Naruto-sama, a pure-blooded devil. Grafia introduced herself with a hand on her chest. I am the personal maid of Mistress Lucifer, one of the 4 leaders of the devil faction. Go on. Naruto nodded as he ate his meal, feeling familiarity towards the name Lucifer, but said feeling disappeared as soon as it surfaced in his mind. My mistress's full name is Riria Lucifer. As soon as Naruto heard Riria, a skull-splitting pain strikes, causing Naruto to wince in discomfort and massage his forehead. Naruto-sama, are you okay? Grafia asked in concern, but the blonde just raised a hand and shook his head. He didn't know why, but he had the feeling that he had forgotten something very important. Riria Lucifer, that name made him feel warm, but he couldn't remember anything about her. Sorry, it was just a little headache. Please continue, Grafia, Naruto said with a smile after he had regained his composure and looked back at Grafia. Yes, as I said, Naruto, Riria-sama is my mistress and one of the 4 leaders of the devil faction, with the title of Lucifer. She's formerly known as Riria Gremry. This information made Naruto's eyes widen a little. Rias Gremry is her sister, isn't she? Naruto guessed. Rias could be the daughter or someone related to Riria, but for an unknown reason, he had chosen sister as the possible relationship between them. Yes, Naruto, Rias-sama is Riria-sama's younger sister. She is the current heir to one of the most powerful devil households of the devil faction, the Gremry household. Naruto nodded his head at this. He should have known better. The way Rias acted and carried herself around slightly reminded him of the rich girls and princesses he had met in the past, though he'll admit that she was a little tomboyish and more easygoing than most of them, which was a good thing. What about her friends? You mean Akino and Kaneko? They are her servants, reincarnated devils who served her as part of her peerage. Their relationships are similar to Mai and Riria-sama's. I see. That explains why I can feel something else from both of them, Naruto said as he took a small sip from his drink. What about the fallen angels, or the angels? I take that you guys don't have the best of relationship with them. Yes, Naruto-sama, due to a state of extreme exhaustion after the Great War and with all 3 factions losing their main forces, either of the 3 sides wanted to continue battling, so while there was no peace between us, outright battles did not occur either. Grafia answered, and Naruto could see honesty in each and every one of her answers. She had no intention of lying to him. In fact, Naruto didn't know if she even thought of doing that. The two then spent the next half an hour talking about the supernatural world, with Naruto becoming more and more interesting in the subject. However, what bothered him the most was that while Grafia had made it clear, she had not outright implied it, but Naruto could tell from just reading her facial expressions that he had involved himself with the 3 factions and other mythical factions on certain levels. He didn't remember anything about them. Could it be that his 100 years' worth of memories lost had somehow made him forget all about them too? How was that even possible? So are we close? Naruto couldn't help but ask, looking at Grafia, who had just finished telling him the current state of the devil faction. So far, this woman had done nothing but telling him the truth. It's hard to believe that she would put that much trust in him with just a night together. In fact, even the way she addressed him showed that not just trust, but she also highly respected him as well. Yes, Naruto-sama. You are actually very close to the Gremry household and… No, Grafia, he pointed at her, and then at himself. I mean you and I. Are we close? Grafia paused for a second, obviously not expecting Naruto to ask her that question right off the bat like that. In truth, Naruto himself had wanted to save it for later, but the more he knew about the supernatural world, the more he wanted to know if he had any serious relationship with one of them. Are we? But before she could finish, not that Naruto believed she could any time soon, a ringtone was heard, and Grafia reached her hand into her handbag on the table and took out her phone. She did not answer it, but when she looked at the name on the screen and Naruto saw the expression on her face, he instantly knew that she had to leave. So I take that you need to leave now. Yes, Naruto-sama. You don't have to explain yourself to me, Grafia. You can do whatever you want. We can leave this conversation for later. And about my question, you don't have to answer if you don't want to or have difficulty. I understand. Naruto said softly as he put his much larger hand on top of hers. He then pulled out a small card from his shirt pocket and gave it to the silver-haired devil before continuing. Use this number to contact me later if you want to, Grafia. Once you are more comfortable, we will meet again and you can tell me everything else. With that said, Naruto stood up and walked to the reception table to pay for their orders, winking at Grafia before he left. The woman just sat there, smiling softly while clutching the card close to her chest. Thank you, please come again next time. Asia lowered her head down and said gratefully with a warm smile. The group of Ko High School boys waved goodbye to her with blushes on their faces as they left the ramen stand. We should head home soon, Asia. Naruto looked at the clock. Rias-chan is coming at 7 o'clock to help you study, so we should be there when she comes. Yes, Oniai-chan. Naruto smiled. He knew from her homeroom teacher that the girl was a hard-working student, but she had a lot of trouble with kanji and Japanese, so when he asked, Rias had offered her help. Naruto could help too, but there were things that a fellow female student could do better than he ever could. Walking back to their home, it did not take it long for Naruto to catch sight of the familiar and unique color of Rias' hair, which he had done a lot lately to identify her from the rest, as she stood beside the wall outside of his house, and looking as stunning as ever. Of course she is, Naruto thought to himself, she is a devil after all. You're pretty early, Rias-chan. Naruto smiled as he walked closer to Rias with Asia, making the older girl turned her head to him and smiled when she saw her homeroom teacher / ramen chef and his adopted sister, who went to the same class as her servant, Issei Hayato. Good evening, Rias-senpai. Asia bowed her head down to the older girl in front of her. Good evening to you too, Asia-chan, Naruto-sensei. Asia beamed at them. Come on in, Rias-chan, and make yourself at home. Naruto grinned at the heiress of the Gremory household, who smiled and nodded her head. I will, sensei. Rias smiled and entered the house with Asia following close behind. Rias's tutoring started as soon as Asia finished her bath. While both girls were studying, Naruto spent his time grading the math tests he had given his class earlier that day, but even as his hands worked on autopilot, his mind wandered back to his conversation with Grafia, comparing what he had learned from her to the old days, the days when there were still an elemental nations, Konoha and ninja. Those were the days that he did not have to worry about anything other than fulfilling the duty of a Hokage and a shinobi of the Leaf Village. What he missed the most, however, was his first wife, Hinata Hyuga, the one who had loved him and secretly supported him since she was young unconditionally. He always wondered, even after a few thousand years, why he was so oblivious to her feelings back then. He missed her dearly. Her gentle smile, the way she blushed whenever he was near her, the passionate love she had for him, her beautiful face with blue-green eyes. Wait, Hinata's eyes was pale purple. A woman wearing a pure white sundress suddenly appeared in Naruto's mind and caused him to pause his hand on Ria's test paper. She was standing with her back to him, their hands intertwining while her extremely long and beautiful crimson hair were flowing down her back like a waterfall of silk. Naruto's heart skipped a beat when she turned around to face him and started dancing while singing a soft tune. Her long front bangs were shadowing the upper portion of her face, making it hard for him to tell what she looked like, but he could still see the beautiful smile on her soft pink lips, which slowly began to mouth words. He strained his ears to hear them. Naruto-sensei, Naruto-sensei. Naruto blinked when he heard that, and looked up to see Rias standing before him with her hand waving in front of his face. Ah yes, Rias-chan? Naruto asked, though his voice sounded very surprised. I have been trying to call you, sensei. She told him with a worried smile. Are you okay? She asked with concern. Huh. Yeah, I'm fine. He smiled and looked down to finish scoring Ria's test, giving her a perfect A+. Good work, Rias-chan. The crimson-haired girl smiled at him, before Naruto continued, hoping to change the subject. How's Asia? She did great, Rias said with a small smile. I think at the end of the week she will be able to read Japanese a little bit easier, though speaking fluently may take a little longer. Before Naruto could open his mouth, Rias had quickly continued, Asia is sleeping now, she was a bit tired so I took her to bed after we finished. Thank you, Rias-chan. He grinned at her and stood up. Say, you hungry? I will go cook some ramen. Ramen? Just what do you normally eat, sensei? Rias stood up and glared playfully at him. Ramen? The blonde answered with a forced chuckle. He actually didn't eat that much ramen anymore. It depended on his mood, so he always had enough ingredients for some ramen in the house. Show me the kitchen, sensei, she demanded while rolling her sleeves up. I will make you dinner. Before Naruto could protest, claiming it was inappropriate for a female student to do something like that for her teacher, like he cared, Rias had left the living room to find the kitchen. Scratching the back of his head, the slowly followed the crimson-haired devil, though his mind was wandering back to the girl in his dream. The girl who resembled Rias Gremory so much, but the feeling wasn't quite the same. The girl felt more mature. Could it be that it was her sister Riria Lucifer? And what if she was? What was his relationship with her? That was no dream Naruto could tell, but memories of his lost time. Naruto sat down at the dining table and watched Rias skillfully dance around the kitchen counter. It was quite fortunate that he had bought some ingredients the previous day whenever Asia wanted to have something different. Loved ramen as much as he did, Naruto was well aware how unhealthy the food was, especially to young, growing girl like Asia. While cooking, Rias began to hum a soft tune, causing Naruto to look at her in surprise. That was the same tune that he heard in his dream, that same song that girl was singing. It made him feel at peace more than he had ever felt in his life, even more so than Asia's smile. There was no more doubt that was truly his memory. But did that mean his memories was coming back? Here you go, Rias announced and began to put the dishes on the table. She then sat down on the chair next to Naruto and waited for him. Smell amazing, Rias-chan, Naruto praised before he picked up his chopstick and took the first bite. Oh damn, taste even better. Wow, this is delicious, Rias-chan. Naruto continued to praise her, causing a huge smile to spread out on her face. Thank you, sensei. Rias giggled with a small blush. I practice every day to improve my skills. Keep that up and I may have to propose to you just for your cooking skill alone, he said, causing Rias to blush furiously. That came out wrong. Anyway, you should eat some too, Rias-chan, he told her while chuckling nervously. After that, the two of them ate in a comfortable silence, striking conversations there and there but nothing too important or serious to think about later. However, Naruto soon decided that he should get to know the young woman next to him, something beyond the information Grafia had told him, of course. So Rias-chan, care to tell me more about yourself, like your family? Rias looked at him in surprise before looking at the bowl in her hand. Bonding moment between a teacher and his student, Naruto nodded sagely in his mind as he waited patiently for Rias to answer him. Well, sensei, you can say that I love my family dearly. Rias smiled, though her smile was a little sad. Did something happen? You don't need to tell me if you don't want to. No, it's okay. She shook her head before taking a deep breath. My family had engaged me to somebody that I don't even love, my own family. Naruto is shell-shocked. Arranged marriage? I thought that was too old of a tradition to still be relevant, he asked. Now he understood why her emotions were always fluctuating even though she tried to act normal outside. It's an effort to join two families together. Rias's hands formed into fists. Both families wishes us to be happy, but sometimes I can't just shake off the feeling this whole marriage engagement is just pure business. And it doesn't matter what or how I talk to them, they still refuse to change their mind, believing that if I don't love him now then I will grow to do so eventually after our wedding. Even my beloved sister Rias muttered the last part. I guess if I wasn't a daughter of a rich and powerful family, I can at least find my love and then live a happy life like how I have always wanted to. I want someone to look at me as Rias, not Rias Gremory, the daughter of the Gremory household. That's why I moved away from my family and came to Japan, knowing everyone wouldn't know who I was and just looked at me normally. Tears formed at the corners of her eyes as she remembered all the heated arguments she had had with her family about the engagement, yet after all that, she still couldn't make them change their mind, or bring herself to hate them. Suddenly, Naruto walked around her and turned her chair, causing Rias to turn away from the dining table. The crimson-haired girl didn't even have time to ask what he was doing before Naruto put his arms around her shoulders and embraced her, bringing her head against his chest. Rias then felt a familiar warmness blooming in her heart, one that she couldn't help but feel that she had felt before, but couldn't place it. At the same time, she also felt comforted and safe, like she no longer needed to worry about the entire world itself while she was in Naruto's arms. It was strange because this was the first time the two were so close to each other, yet she couldn't help but had the feeling that he had done this before like 100 times. Don't cry, Rias-chan. I understand how you feel, and all that you need to do is continue to be yourself, Naruto said soothingly as he held Rias close against his chest. He didn't know why he did this, he was just following his instincts. Sadness and tears don't suit you, but for now just let it all out. And remember, if you ever need anything, Rias, you can always ask for my help. It's not because you're Rias Gremory, the girl who comes from a super rich family or anything like that, but because you're Rias Gremory, my student and the first real friend that I made when I first came to this town. Rias felt her cheeks heat up a bit by both his actions and words, but then a soft smile appeared on her lips as she snuggled closer to him. Oni-sama? A soft voice made Naruto and Rias turn their head, and see a fuming Asia Argento standing at the doorway into the dining room, looking at both of them with blushing cheeks and an angry, yet extremely cute expression on her face. Oh, hey Asia-chan. Naruto grinned sheepishly and released Rias, who glared lightly at Asia for ruining the moment. Mao, I didn't know that Rias-senpai and Naruto and Ai-sama like each other, Asia pouted while glaring at Rias, but I won't lose to you, Rias-senpai. You won't lose to me? Really, Asia-chan? Rias questioned playfully and folded her arms underneath her big, leaning them a bit toward Asia. Don't you realize that you're already losing? Rias slightly pushed her up to make them look even bigger, making the blush on Asia's face become redder. The girls continued to glare at each other as Naruto looked between them and let out a soft laugh. After a minute his patience ran out and Naruto decided to speak up. His attention was on his little sister. Asia-chan, are you feeling hungry? Yes, Nisama. Asia nodded her head rapidly and ran to sit on the chair next to him, not forgetting to stick her tongue out at Rias, making her laugh softly into her hand. Excuse me, can you tell me where can I find Rias Gremory-san? Asashi is in her clubroom at the old school building, Naruto-sensei. Thank you. Naruto waved the female student goodbye before he headed straight to the old school building with his hands in his pockets. For some reason, he couldn't sense Rias' signature anymore, and that was why he had to ask for her exact location from other students. Then, when Naruto was about to enter the old school building, he suddenly found himself unable to take another step forward. Frowning, Naruto used his hand to touch the air in front of him and felt something akin to a wall blocking his path, and when he looked behind, other students just randomly walked away without even asking a question, even though they all looked like they wanted to walk to the old building. Ah, I see, this shit is like Harry Potter, Naruto muttered while rubbing his chin, before making a piece of appear in his hand with a puff of smoke, beside a pen brush and bottle of ink. Let's see if I can crack this egg open. The immortal shinobi said as he wrote down a series of complicated kanji onto the paper before taking it the invisible barrier and placing it flat against the surface. Instantly, a small gap opened before him, allowing Naruto to walk through the magical barrier without any problem. Instantly he could feel Ria's presence, along with her friends/servants, and a large amount of other presences he didn't recognize. Still, he was able to detect a very familiar one among them, which brought a small smile to his face. A party or something? Naruto wondered as he entered the building and headed to Ria's clubroom, finding it on the second floor. Before he could enter, however, his ear was able to pick up a male voice. The group seemed to be in the middle of a conversation. Rias, how about we have a match in 10 days? We could do it now, but that wouldn't be interesting. Are you giving me a handicap? Naruto heard Rias say, though he had never heard her voice with so much frustration in them before. Things were definitely heating up in there. Are you against it? Is it humiliating? A rating game isn't something simple that you can win with only your feelings. If you can't use your servant's power to their fullest potential, then you will lose immediately. So it's not weird for you to train with your servants for your first rating game. I have seen devils who lost because they didn't use their power to the fullest countless of times, no matter how great their potential and power was. Damn, someone knows what he is doing, Naruto admitted while nodding his head, but the speech itself would sound so much nicer if the one who said it wasn't looking down on his opponent. Whoever he was, he must be very confident in his power, and was rather full of himself. Who's there? Graphia Lucifuge suddenly asked, making the entire room fall into silence. Though her firm tone trailed off near the end, which meant she had realized the identity of the person that was eavesdropping on them. Deciding to play dumb, Naruto opened the door and walked in, with the most Naruto smile that he could muster. Yo! Good morning, class. Sorry to disturb, but I'm looking for Rias Gremory-chan. Naruto grinned while looking around the room like he was wondering how they were able to get so many cute and beautiful girls inside without anyone noticing, while in truth he could tell that they used magic to do so. Oh, hey Rias-chan. He grinned broadly at the Crimson Heiress who was looking at him with her mouth agape. And Naruto-sensei? Akino was the first one who recovered by his sudden appearance. She, like everyone else, was wondering how he was able to get past the barrier around the old school building, which was cast by Graphia herself. Can I come in? Naruto's eyes landed on a tall man with blonde hair standing on one side of the room with 15 girls behind him, with beauty ranging from cute to downright gorgeous, though nowhere near the level of his friends. The blonde man was wearing an expensive-looking suit with his chest exposed a little. He was looking at him with disgust in his eyes, No. Yes. Rias and Grafia then turned their heads to look at each other, a frown appearing on both of their beautiful faces. Grafia, he is my guest and this is my clubroom. Also, he is a teacher of this school, so Naruto-sensei can come in if he wants to, Rias said clearly. Unfortunately, Ojo-sama, this matter isn't for an outsider to hear, Grafia said with a chilling tone to Rias before turning her head to Naruto, her face devoid of any positive emotions. So Naruto-san, can you please leave this room immediately? You can come over later. Holy shit, she's cold. Naruto had to hold back a wolf whistle at that while admiring how good she looked in that French-made outfit of her. Well, she did say that she was the head maid of her Ria's sister Riria Lucifer, but he did not expect her to be a completely different woman while working. The look on her face and the possible threat in her tone could send anyone running away with their tail between their legs. Why the cold tone, maid-san, Naruto laughed, using her own words from before to get back at her. Deciding to play dumb for the time being, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a stack of cards, which was from his own new ramen restaurant. I'm merely here to give Rias-chan and her club's members some voucher cards for my ramen restaurant, that's all. We'll open tomorrow. Business has been great recently with my food stand, so I decide to step up a bit. He said mainly to himself and went inside the room to give them the visiting cards, one for each member of the Occult Research Club, which they took it gratefully. When he passed Issei, Naruto could tell that the brunette was in serious pain, like he had just gotten hit in the stomach. If Asia were here, then she would not hesitate to rush over and heal him with her sacred gear. The blonde then turned to Grafia and handed her a voucher, her expression remaining unchanged even as Naruto waved the card a mere inch before her face. This is for you, maid-san. If you have time, feel free to come over and give us a try. He smirked. I hate ramen, Naruto-san. The food is disgusting. So it's a no for me. She answered coldly, and not even bothered to take the card from him, causing Naruto to force a smile on his face while his eyebrow was twitching a bit as he looked at the silver-haired maid, who continued to look at him with sternness in her eyes. Those were the coldest words about ramen he had ever heard from anyone, making him feel that there had to be a reason behind them. Making a mental note to ask her about it later, the blonde then turned his head to the group of unfamiliar faces in the room. Hey, you girls want to try Uzumaki ramen sometimes? My name is Naruto Uzumaki, the head chef of Uzumaki Ramen. Don't believe what maid-san said, ramen is delicious and healthy if you eat with vegetable. The blood asked while grinning broadly, making a number of the girls in front of him blush furiously. He could hear Grafia sigh quietly behind him, like she had expected him to say something like that. Before he could give them the cards, their male leader held out his hand to block his path. You got a problem with me, dude? Naruto asked, still keeping the smile on his face. You filthy sack of shit, how dare you? But before Razor Phoenix could even finish his question, Naruto had already thrown his forehead at the blonde, smashing it into his nose and knocking him down to the ground, much to the shock of everyone in the room, including the girls of his peerage, who rushed over to protect their master. But a cold glare from Grafia from behind Naruto was more than enough to cause them to back off nervously before they could do something to Naruto for hurting Razor. Just after Rias and her peerage managed to pick her mouth off the ground, the Crimson Heiress started to let out a fit of giggle while looking at the pathetic form of her finances, who was clutching his bleeding nose, which healed back almost instantly, but the blood was still there, while sitting on the ground. Even Issei could not hold back his laughter, serve him right. Last I checked, you are not a student of this school, correct, dickhead? Naruto asked with an awfully friendly tone, causing Razor and his peerage to drop their mouths in shock at the level of his insult. So it is okay for me to hit you, right? For calling me a filthy sack of shit, while you yourself are not even better? You, how dare you do this to me, you lowly human? Naruto raised an eyebrow at this. Era, why are you calling me that now? It's as if you're not human. Naruto asked while pretending to be in amusement by the blonde's joke. He then looked at the girl with the curved pigtail, who was the only one that wasn't glaring daggerly at him like the rest of the group. She had a look of confusion on her face, and a thoughtful expression, as if she was trying to remember something. That was the face he had been making the past few days, so he knew. You. That's quite enough, Riser-sama. Grafia spoke up in a cold, chilling tone. So that's the prick's name. Naruto thought before hearing Grafia continue. If you say anything further, I will have to end this meeting right here, by force. She finished emotionlessly, making Riser gulp nervously with a pale white face. To everyone's surprise, the temperature in the room actually dropped several degrees after the maid finished her speech, causing the likes of Issei to shiver a bit. Naruto could actually see his breath, which he had to wonder if it was her power or just a release of her magical energy. The blonde then turned around to look at Grafia. The silver-haired maid had to be extremely powerful and fearsome among devils to have such an impact like that to someone who had clearly lived most of his life looking down on everyone like Razor. It made him want to know his relationship with her even more. Right, Razor muttered to himself, earning a nod from Graphia. Good. Then, Graphia turned her eyes to the vice president of ORC Club, Akeno-san. Please escort Naruto-san outside so we can finish this meeting without any more trouble. Yes, Graphia-san. Akeno nodded her head before turning to the blonde. Naruto-sensei, please follow me. Just a minute, Akeno-chan. Naruto brought his hand up to stop her before he walked to the girls behind Riser and gave them the cards. Make sure to pay a visit later, okay? He grinned and winked one-eyed at the last girl who was the only one who didn't glare at him. She nodded her head slowly while spotting a small blush on her face. Right, off I go. See ya in class, Rias-chan. And don't forget to do your homework, Issei-kun. Tadayama-sensei has been complaining about you. Naruto shouted even after leaving the room, causing the boy in question to gasp in shock with a horrified face. When the two finally got out of the building, Akeno led him to a nearby bench to sit down with him. Akeno wanted to stay to make sure that Naruto wouldn't try to sneak in again, but mainly she wanted to spend some time to get to know her homeroom teacher better, who had originally caught the interest of her king and best friend. His name just happened to appear in every conversation the two had had recently. So, who was that guy? Naruto asked while shuffling the voucher. He is Riser Phoenix, Akeno informed him. Bucho's fiancé. Naruto nodded his head in understand. If that was finances, then there was no surprise why she was so against the engagement. Don't tell anyone I say this, but a man like him really needs to remove that stick from his ass soon, Naruto said, causing Akeno to giggle softly into her hand. Reaching into her skirt's pocket, Akeno then pulled out the voucher with the 30% discount Naruto had given to her. So, no longer a humble small ramen stand owner, Naruto-sensei? Yeah, like I said, business has been really good recently. He chuckled. I mean, it's not surprise at all, when I have a cute little angel as my waitress, and two beautiful girls, who happen to be the two most popular girls around these blocks, visit my stand daily. He praised, making a pink-hued dust Akeno's cheeks. She had heard from Rias, and had a feeling herself, that Naruto was really good with words, so she wasn't surprised to hear him speaking so smoothly like that. You know what, because of that you deserve another voucher, Akeno-chan. Thank you, sensei. I will make sure to visit your restaurant later, Akeno said before standing up and smiling warmly to him. See you later, sensei. With that, she turned around and headed back into her clubroom, having felt Razor and his peerage leaving a minute ago. Naruto continued to sit there for a few more seconds or so before he stood up and headed back to the teacher's office. Asia, do you think we should keep our restaurant's name Uzumaki Ramen or change it to the Wonderland of Ramen? I think we should just leave it as Uzumaki Ramen, Nisama. Naruto shrugged his shoulder and continued to bring tables, chairs, and a lot of other things into his newly bought house from the truck parking outside. It would be the place that his ramen business would take place for the next few weeks. Asia was helping him with cleaning, but with just two people, even with one like him, it would still take them more than a few hours to get things done. He had already hired extra helps, with some of them being chefs while the rest were waitresses because Asia wouldn't be able to solo all of the customers herself, and the both of them had school to worry about as well. For the chefs, he would need to train them until they could replicate his signature dishes, else Uzumaki Ramen would never be able to live up to its name and reputation. Naruto-sensei. The door of his new store opened. Naruto looked up when his name was called, and his face then turned into a grin when he saw his favorite crimson-haired customer walking in. Ohio, Rias-chan. Naruto greeted Rias cheerfully. Hello, Rias-senpai. Asia bowed her head with a small smile, holding the broomstick in her hands. Hey Asia-chan, Rias waved slightly to her before turning back to Naruto. Naruto-kun, can I talk to you in private for a sec? Sure. Naruto nodded and led her to the back room. He then closed the door behind them and asked with a warm voice, So what's up, Rias-chan? Sensei, I wish to ask you to allow me to skip school for the next 2 weeks. Really? Why? Naruto asked, but he wasn't feeling that surprised because he had already known what would happen in 10 days. Rias definitely need time to prepare. Her schoolwork should not be a problem either, since he had a feeling that all the subjects at school were child play to her. She was merely there for the experience. I'd prefer not talk about it, Rias said uneasily, but my future depends on this. I see, very well then Rias-chan. Naruto nodded and patted her head, but after things has gone the way you want, make sure to bring everyone to my store to celebrate, okay? It will be on the house. Really? Thank you, sensei. Rias said to him with a bright smile before throwing her arms around his neck. hugging him tightly against her. "Thank you," she whispered, and then let go of him to leave the room. "I thought you would ask him to be your servant?" Akino asked when she saw her friend walking out of Uzumaki Ramen. "No, Akino, we can't prepare Naruto in just 10 days. Issei will suffice. Plus, I don't want him to get hurt. Razor will probably single him out because of the humiliation Naruto gave him yesterday," Ria said firmly before turning her head to her queen. "Let's go, Akino." Riria Lucifer, formerly Riria Gremory, sat beside her son's bed, quietly moving a few strands of crimson hair away from her son's adorable face. It had been a while since she could sing her son to sleep. "Sleep well, my son," Riria whispered before standing up, planting a soft kiss on her 10-year-old son's forehead. Riria, as quietly as she could, slowly opened the door of her son's room and walked out. "Riria-sama," Grafia said in a low tone. "Grafia," Riria smiled at her queen before starting to return to her own chamber. "It's a beautiful night, isn't it?" she asked while stretching her arms above her head. "Yes," Riria-sama. Grafia nodded her head. "Beautiful night, just like 10 years ago." Riria's smile slowly left her face, while Grafia's emotionless expression started to quiver slightly for a second before she was able to regain her composure. What had happened 10 years ago had always been a highly disconcerting topic for both of them. "You miss him too, don't you?" Riria asked as she turned back to the silver-haired maid, walking backward to her bedroom. "Ah, come on, drop that blank face and answer me truthfully." "Yes, Riria-sama, I miss Naruto-sama. There's not a single day I'm not thinking about him," Grafia admitted with her head bowing a bit. "Of course," Riria smiled softly, "because after all, you may love him even more than I do." Grafia's expression remained impassive, but her eyes softened just a little. "I wonder how our life would be if he were still here." Grafia looked at the woman in front of her, who a long time ago used to be her most dangerous rival in love. Would we still be looking at each other with heated glares 24/7? Would we still be fighting until he decides to intervene and then scolds us like children? Would you and I still become the best of friends?" Riria asked while leaning her arms on the window's frame and put her upper body out, her hair flowing in the wind. "I miss him too, Grafia. I really miss him." Grafia bit her lower lip as she gripped her uniform skirt tightly. Riria had changed so much without Naruto around, and she hated it. "Please just wait a bit longer, Riria. I promise I will bring him back to us." As Grafia Lucifuge finished her work in the kitchen and headed to the ballroom to make sure that everything were in order, she couldn't help but think back to the raiding game match that had happened yesterday and led to the wedding event that would happen at the Gremory residence tomorrow night that would set the unification of two great devil clan. The wedding of Rias Gremory and Riser Phoenix. 10 days had passed since the day Razor came into Ria's clubroom and got her to challenge him in a raiding game, the game that everyone, even the little princess herself, had known that she would lost even before the match even began. It was clear to Grafia that Ria's attempt was out of desperation. She had hoped for a miracle to happen to her and her peerage. While no one could deny that each and every single member of Ria's peerage were talented and held tremendous potential, it still had been a match of 5 against 16. Not only had Razor had the advantage of number, but he also had been very well prepared and experienced with raiding game. No one could blame Rias for losing such battle. Grafia herself had been the one who declared the defeat of Rias Gremory, and she had been extremely busy since then. As the head maid of Riria Lucifer, Ria's older sister, it was her job to make sure that the wedding would be nothing but perfection, taking great pleasure and responsibility in doing all this because she knew well how important this wedding would be for the future of the devil faction. But her mind couldn't help but think of Naruto Uzumaki, wondering what would he do if he still had his memories of her and found out Rias was getting married to someone that she obviously did not love. She knew that the blonde wouldn't be pleased at all. In fact, if he was even half the person he had been when the two of them first met, then Naruto would most likely stomp into Phoenix residence and force Razor's parents to cancel the engagement between two family immediately. Thinking about Naruto made Grafia think about Riria, and she couldn't help but let out a sigh. Riria had been very distracted recently, to the point that she became lost in her own world during important meetings with the clan heads. It wasn't just because her adorable little sister was getting married, but it was also because that day was coming near. It was the day that 10 years ago she thought she had lost everything. Grafia still remembered how Riria had fallen apart at his funeral, which had been held in secret. 2 months later, the new Lucifer still barely kept herself together. She didn't eat, and she refused to leave her room. Even now, even in the middle of the night, Grafia could still hear her mistress sobbing and crying quietly to herself. If it wasn't for the sakes of her son and her sister, Riria might never recover. The innocent smiles of 2 children had brought Riria back from desperation, and slowly but gradually, she began to show sign of her life again, and came back to her old self about a year later. But unlike everyone, Grafia knew full well that Riria had never gotten over Naruto's death. She just pretended to be happy, to be strong for her son, but the maid knew that deep down inside, she was a broken woman. Riria just loved Naruto too much to be able to forget him. But it was also the reason why Riria could never hold on to false hope, the reason why she had lashed out at her queen and best friend when she suggested that it might be her husband when Rias came and told them about the mysterious blonde she had met. One too many times she had met his descendants, and thought they might be him because of the uncanny resemblances. Riria just couldn't believe anymore. Suddenly, the vibration of her phone inside her pocket snapped the silver-haired maid out of her thoughts. Having a feeling that she knew who was trying to contact her, Grafia quickly excused herself to somewhere more private and took out her phone, smiling warmly when she saw the name on the screen. She then held the phone close to her chest, and waited till the waiting time of the call almost came to an end to answer him, sounding as normal as she could. Naruto-sama. Ah, I told you there was no need for such honorable suffix, Grafia-chan. Naruto teased in a playful voice. How are you? I'm fine, thank you, Naruto-sama, she said nonchalantly, but couldn't stop herself from smiling a little. So, how things going with you? Naruto asked. How come you haven't paid a visit to my restaurant yet? I told you I hated ramen, didn't I, Naruto-sama? Ouch, that hurt. The blonde winced before letting out a soft chuckle. Yeah, about that. We also serve all sorts of Japanese foods here, so come sometimes. It's on the house. I see, then I shall come as you wish tomorrow. Anyway, how's Rias-chan? He then asked. I want to know why she wasn't at school this morning? You know, I am her homeroom teacher and all that. This rating game match was yesterday, correct? Grafia frowned. Should she tell Naruto what happened to Rias? It was obvious the blonde didn't like Razor Phoenix one bit, and it wasn't because the Phoenix insulted him when they first met. Even without his memories, Naruto had shown signs of being very protective of the next heir of Gremory clan. Did she lose? Naruto suddenly asked with a calm tone. Fair and square? Naruto-sama. Grafia didn't know what to do. For once she was at loss for words. Tell me everything. Yamamoto-san, can you take over the ramen station for me? Yes, boss. The elderly man, who greatly reminded Naruto of Old Man Tucci, said as he walked over to Naruto's station, allowing to Blonde to remove his apron and head out to the dining area, where he took a seat at one of the tables by the window. He took a second to look at the girl that he viewed as his foster little sister, who was rushing back and forth alongside the other waitresses of Uzumaki Food Paradise, serving the customers the best Japanese foods, not just ramen, anywhere in the world. Asia had always been their favorite since the day Naruto opened his store. Her innocent and cheerful nature, along with the usual happy smile and positive aura that she carried around her, easily melted the hearts of any customers who stepped foot into his restaurant. But Asia wasn't the only one that had been in his mind for the past few hours. When he was about to think back to what Grafia had told him earlier about Rias and her upcoming wedding, he caught sight of a familiar girl wearing a pink dress with a red ribbon tied in a ribbon around her collar, and a decoration like phoenix's tails behind her back, standing just outside of his restaurant, looking cutely uncomfortable under the stare of the local townspeople around her. Surprise, surprise, Naruto muttered humorously as he leaned his head back and started tapping his hand on the table, seeing that the girl was clutching the voucher card he had given her in her hands. So my first non-human customer is a little lady, and here I thought that it was going to be Rias or Grafia. Deciding that he had let her wait long enough, Naruto stood up and walked out of his store to greet her with a charming smile on his face. Well, hello? Before he could finish, the girl had already interrupted him, pointing an accused finger at Naruto with her other hand on her hip before saying loudly, I have been staying here for the past 3 hours. Why didn't you come and greet me, you low-class man? Wait, you've been standing here for 3 hours? Naruto asked in both surprise and amusement, wolf whistling as he crossed his arms on his chest and looked down at the girl. Damn, now I have no idea if you were that patient, or just being stubborn. He mocked, making the girl puff out her cheek and fume angrily at him. Although, he couldn't help but wonder why no one seemed to notice her. Like Asia, without a doubt a girl like her would draw a lot of attention. She then looked down, aimed for his foot and tried to stomp it, but Naruto easily took a step back and moved his foot out of the way before her heel could land the blow. Now, young lady, we don't exactly have a special greeting service here, and I also don't remember telling you to wait outside when you come to my humble restaurant. His hand then shot out and grabbed Ravel by the back of her pink dress, making her squeal in surprise as he lifted her off the ground and then turned around so he could put her down in his restaurant there. Just gotta put your foot in like that. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Thank you? She said gratefully while fixing her dress. Being raised in a high-class environment has its downsides, huh? Naruto asked with a chuckle as he gestured his hand around. I take that you don't need me to show you how to find a table. Why yes, I know how to do it. Revel shouted at him, making Naruto cover his ear in a dramatic manner before he followed her to the table where he previously sat. He then looked at Asia and waved a hand to call her over. Asia, come here please. Yes, Oni-sama. Asia smiled and walked to stand next to the table, holding the menu in her hand. Welcome to Uzumaki Ramen. Saying cheerfully, she then bowed her head to Revel, causing the other blonde to look at her in surprise. Give this girl the menu. I think she is very hungry. Hi Oni-sama. Asia said and handed Revel the menu she was holding. Here you go, miss. Your sister clearly has more manner than you. The girl huffed and looked at the menu, then her face turned into a frown then confusion. I will take, as she muttered unsurely, gluing her eyes to the menu as if her life depended on it. How about some yakitori? The immortal shinobi suggested, before he raised his hand and casually caught the salt bottle that was thrown at his head. Just bring her some takoyaki, Asia-chan, and a cup of lemonade. Naruto looked at his sister, earning a nod from the former nun, who then headed back into the kitchen to inform the chefs of Ravel's order. Thank you? The girl lowered her head gratefully. For someone who had such an attitude toward things that she didn't like, Naruto had to admit that she was quite a well-mannered girl. It's just I never ate these foods before, so the blonde said while playing with the cuffs of her sleeves, looking extremely uncomfortable. You must eat top-quality food all the time, huh? Naruto asked with a smile. So, what's your name? My name is Revel Phoenix. I'm Razor Phoenix's sister. She paused before continuing. The one you crashed your forehead into in Rias-sama's clubroom. Oh yeah, I remember him, the dickhead. Naruto chuckled. Please don't call him that. It's rude. But of course, the blonde ignored her. So anyway, what are you doing here at my humbling ramen store, Revel-sama? Naruto asked with a slight mocking tone, making the daughter of Phoenix Clan puff her cheek out in annoyance. I want to know who you are. Well, sorry, but I don't plan to get a girlfriend right now. Come back when you are a bit more mature, and I will consider. Mao, you're so annoying. Revel complained with a pout before she took a look around, like she was trying to make sure no one was eavesdropping them before turning her head back to him. I want to know if you're really human or not. Naruto raised an eyebrow at that. Now that's surprising. If he hadn't met Graphia and had those just talk meeting with her, then he would quickly dismiss what she just told him and think of the best ways to convince her that she was crazy, or had gotten the wrong idea. Here you go. Asia suddenly appeared with a plate of 12 takoyaki, placing it on the table. Please enjoy your meal. She bowed before quickly ran off to serve other customers. So how do I eat this? Revel asked as she picked up a stick, looking carefully while twirling it around. Just stab into them to pick them up and put in your mouth. You can actually sauce too if you like spicy foods. Naruto said to the girl, nodded her head. And what is this about me being not human again? I read about you in a comic book for children. Naruto couldn't stop himself from raising an eyebrow at that. Him? In a comic book for children? That's cool as hell. He gotta ask Graphia about that the next time they met. The protagonist was never given a name, just a title. But the way he looked, the way he behaved, even the way he just randomly offered someone a meal of ramen are the same as you. Revel pointed out, and made Naruto's eyes widen even further with what she then told him next. Then I remembered when I was younger, my mother used to tell me bedtime stories of an immortal human who fought for us during the Great War. My mother never told me his name, but she said he used to be a ninja, the same as the one in the comic books, the shinobi. Holy shit, this kid! Naruto wolf whistled mentally as he looked at Revel in amazement. She had very good memory, but the way she was able to read him and then pierced everything together had to be the most amazing things he had ever seen from someone so young. This little lady seemed to be a whole lot more than she looked. Whoa, this is so delicious. Ravel's squeal made Naruto smile a little. The daughter of Phoenix Clan was eating her second stick of takoyaki with glee in her eyes. Anyway, you know about that ninja guy? He began, wanting to see how Revel would defend her opinion. Given time and proper education, this girl might have an incredible future ahead of her. Maybe he's just someone that looks like me. I have met quite a lot of dudes that have the same hair, same face, just not as handsome, and same love for ramen like me, you know. Obviously, because they were his descendants. No, I'm sure it was you, Revel stated stubbornly. Sorry, young lady, but I am not him. Please, you have to save Rias-sama. Hearing that, Naruto raised an eyebrow, looking at the girl who had a look of desperation on her face. Why should I save her? He then asked her in a calm manner, knitting his hands on the table. She lost, didn't she? Rias lost, so she has to keep her promise to your brother. It's their deal. He already knows? How? Ravel's eyes widened. But she is not happy. Naruto stayed silent and let her continue. Ria-sama hasn't come out of her room since yesterday. I don't think she has eaten anything or met anyone since the match ended, Ravel said sadly. My brother won the match, but it wasn't fair for her. Everything is fair in a battle, Ravel. She lost because she didn't prepare for it carefully enough, Naruto pointed out. But it was a match of 4 against 15, with 2 having Phoenix's regeneration power. How is that fair for Ria-sama and her servants? How can you be so heartless? Ravel abruptly stood up and reached into her pocket to pull out a big stash of money before slamming it on the table. Thank you for the meal. It's quite clear that you are not the hero in my mother's stories, or those children's comic book. And with that, Ravel stomped out of the store, almost knocking Asia over. Naruto just sat there, his foot tapping impatiently on the floor while he was ignoring all the stares others were giving him. What to do? The blonde let out a sigh as he reached forward and picked up Ravel's money, counting to see how much money she had left behind for just a dish of 12 takoyaki. Making his decision, Naruto reached his hand into his pocket and took out his phone, his fingers dialing the number without even looking. He didn't know why, but he had a feeling that he was not going to regret this decision. Everything is set, Ria-sama, Grafia informed, as she finished casting the barrier spell that would render them and the area around them invisible. Thank you, Grafia. Ria Lucifer smiled. She stepped forward with a bunch of red flowers in her hands. We should hurry, Ria-sama. The wedding ceremony will begin soon. I know, Grafia. It will only take a minute. Nodding at her maid, the crimson-haired Mao turned around and raised a hand, casting a spell that made an enormous crimson magic circle with the insignia of Gremry household appear, covering the entire graveyard. When the magic circle disappeared, stood before the 2 women was a medium-sized gravestone with the symbol of Gremry clan carved on the top, red. Here lies Naruto Uzumaki. Beloved hero, husband and father. A single tear fell from Riria's eyes as she at the name of her husband. It had been 10 years since that day, and not a single day had gone that she didn't try to sneak here to see it if it weren't for Grafia, who constantly reminded her of the duties. 10 years had passed since the day her husband gave his life to save their newborn child. She had been too weak from childbirth to even do anything back then, and her peerage had been forced to leave her side to protect the underworld from a large-scale attacks from stray devils and fallen angels, leaving Naruto to go on and save Milikas on his own. It had taken her a while, but when she had finally been able to get to find her beloved Naruto and their son, she had been greeted with the sight of her loving husband, holding Milikas protectively in his arms as the man had taken him fell to the ground, half of his body missing. Tear of joy, tear of happiness had fallen from her eyes that day, but it soon became ones of terror when she saw the looks on her peerage's face, especially that of Grafia, who had dropped to her knees with the same tears in her eyes as the man they both loved dearly with all of their hearts fell. Aside from herself and Grafia, her sister Rias had been affected the most by Naruto's death. Might be even more so because she had been there that night with them at the hospital with their parents to welcome her little nephew to the world. But when the army of stray devils started their attacks on Lilith, Rias had been separated from their parents in the chaos that followed and wandered off to the place where Naruto was trying to save Milikas from his captor. Witnessing Naruto being tortured before he was shot to death with a weapon that was designed specifically to kill immortal being like him. It horrified Riria and everyone when they thought about what Rias had had to see that day with her eyes. She had been too young back then, barely 10-year-old, to handle it. Riria didn't know the details because she had been a wreck herself, but Grafia told her that Rias had cried even harder than her for Naruto while screaming his name until she passed out in her mother's arms, and then the morning after, she seemed to have forgotten all about her big brother. A Bail doctor who took care of Rias and Ajuka had looked after Rias and said it might have something to do with her coping mechanism and the natures of her power of destruction, which could erase anything from existence. What she had seen was just far too great for her young mind to handle. Eventually, Rias had suppressed her own memories and her demonic power seemed to have erased the first 10 years of her life from her mind, leaving the poor child not remember anything but her own name, her parents and sister. It was bad enough that her husband would never be recognized as the hero of the Great War even after his death, but it's not like they had a choice when they had promised him to keep his existence a secret from everyone else, leaving only a number of high-class devils to know about him because he didn't want to attract unnecessary attention and wish for a normal and peaceful life with his family. Something that he had wanted for so long. It was his decision that his name would never be mentioned in the books and stories that were sang about him and his heroic deeds to the devil faction. Although, he did allow some old comic books authors to call him the shinobi in their works, something that he thought would be cool for the children to know him with. Remembering that brought a smile to Riria's face. If it weren't for Rias and her newborn son Milikas, Riria would never have recovered from such tragedy. With Milikas in her arms, Rias had come to her room and asked her to come out and play with them. It was only then that Riria started to return to her old self, and started to get over the death of her husband somewhat. "Hey Naruto-kun," Riria said gently with a small smile as she laid the flowers down before his grave. Milikas is 10-year-old now. We just celebrated his birthday this morning. He was so happy when all his friends came to play with him. And she trailed off with a sad smile. Rias-chan is going to get married today, isn't that great? The very same girl who chased after you and said she would steal you from me when she grew up. Riria let out a soft laugh before continuing, a frown making it to her face. We want her to be happy, but she looked so sad when I went to see her today. We are really doing it wrong, aren't we, Naruto-kun? You taught me to always do what my heart tell me, but for the future of the devils I can't favor a single devil over the others, even if she was my own sister. The crimson-haired woman sighed longingly. What should I do now, Naruto-kun? I had a plan to save her from this marriage, but… Riria-sama, it's time. I understand, Grafia. Riria looked at her queen, who had a firm look on her face. Even though she didn't seem to notice, it's her first time seeing Grafia acting so normal in front of Naruto's grave like that. I have to go now, Naruto-kun. I will come see you later. Love you? And with that, she turned around and walked away while wiping her tears. Grafia then followed her, knowing that after this day, they might never have to see the grave ever again. Yudo-kun, where is Issei-kun? Akino Himejima asked while looking around. Dressed into an elegant kimono, the queen of Rias Gremory was drawing quite a lot of attention from the male population around her. I thought he was coming with you. He's still recovering, Akino-san. Kiba answered with a forced smile, remembering how Issei had reacted when he came to his house to help Asia patch him up. But he will come soon. I left a special teleporting spell to him just in case. The knight was dressing in a black tuxedo that fit him well. Like Akino, he was also receiving a lot of attention from others, but mostly from the female devils all around him. Why do I have feeling he might do something stupid? The Queen of Rias asked herself. Time. Kaniko's short informant made all three members of Rias Peerage turn their head to look at the main area stage of the ballroom, where a very familiar fire magic circle appeared over the one of Gremory household before busting into flame. Razor Phoenix D emerged with a smug grin on his face, wearing an outfit that exposed his torso. This is such a wonderful day. It's not just the day of my wonderful wedding but also the unity of two powerful families. Everyone, let me present you my queen, Rias Gremory, he said and outstretched his arm and a crimson magic circle appeared beside him. Rias Gremory appeared out of the circle in her white wedding dress, looking extremely stunning and beautiful that immediately captured the hearts of everyone in the room. But her eyes were closed, and her head was lowered in defeat. Just then, the door of the hall was kicked open and a certain pervert stepped into the room before screaming with all his might. Butcherchu! Issei Haida's scream made the devils in the room turn their heads to look at him with wide eyes before everybody burst into shocked chatter. Rias also looking at Issei with wide eyes, as she didn't expect him to come here shouting like that. To all the high-class devils here. And Bucho's sister, Mao-sama. My name is Haida Issei from Ko Academy. I have arrived to take back Bucho, Rias Gremory-sama. The hall becomes even noisier at his speech. Without any care about them, Issei walked towards Rias and Razor with hateful glare to the youngest son of Phoenix clan. Hey you! Do you know where this? A guard came to stop him, but before he could do anything, three shadows suddenly appeared before him. Issei-kun! Leave this to us. You are late. Era, so you finally showed up. Kiba, Kaniko and Akino. All of them were stopping the guards that were trying to get in Issei's way. Thank you. Issei thanked them gratefully, and went towards Razor confidently. When Pawn of Rias Gremory faced him up front, he said it straight at Razor without shame. Bucho, Rias Gremory-sama's virginity belongs to me. Razor makes a face that one wouldn't be able to explain with words, while Rias just sighed in defeat. What's the meaning of this, Razor? Hey, Lady Rias. What's the meaning of this? Relatives and authorized people were making unsettled faces and they were panicking. No one could blame them though. It's an event that I organized. A soft and feminine voice made everyone turn their head to the door. Issei felt his heart stopped when he seen the woman that was walking in the hall with Grafia followed behind. She looked like a much more mature and, if it even possible, more beautiful and attractive version of his master Rias Gremory. The elegant evening dress she was wearing made her obvious sex appeal stood out even more, easily making her the most beautiful woman that was present in the ballroom. Riria Lucifer and her queen, Grafia Lucifuge, had arrived. Nei-sama. Ria said, making Issei's jaw drop. I wanted to see the power of the dragon, so I asked Grafia to do this for me. Ria said casually with a smile on her face. Ariria-sama, you can't do something irresponsible like this. A middle-aged looking devil panicked. The red-haired woman then explained, in a voice that seemed to soothe everyone's wariness and make them all calm down. It should be fine. The rating game, from last time, was very entertaining. But it was a bit disadvantaged for my little sister who had no game experience to face off against Razor-kun, who is a prodigy from the House of Phoenix. So Riria-sama, you are saying that the last game wasn't fair? No, not at all. If a mouse such as me says such thing, then I would be making the old nobles look bad. The connection between the high-class devils is important after all. Riria said it with a smile, ignoring all the stares she was receiving. Then, Riria, what do you want to do about it? A man stepped out with crimson hair asked. Riria smiled. In truth, this was an event that had suddenly appeared and she wasn't planned anything about it. But if she played her card right, she might be able to hello her sister. Father, I want to make my cute little sister's engagement party into a flashy one. Dragon versus Phoenix. Don't you think it's the ultimate event? To stir up the party by having a battle between legendary creatures. There aren't any entertainments which can surpass this. Everyone in the hall became silent with Riria's confession, which then turned her eyes to look at Issei. Dragon User-kun, you have our permission. Razor, can you show your power once more right in front of Rias and I? Hearing the most powerful devil's wish, Razor made a fearless smile. Very well. There is no way I can decline if Riria-sama asks me. This Razor will show his last performance before getting married. Riria nodded before turning her head to Issei. Dragon User-kun, what prize do you want when you win the match? Riria-sama. What are you saying? He's a devil, so we need to give him something fitting for it since we are asking him to do something for us. The mouse smiled and waved her hand carefreely. Now then. I can give you anything. A peerage? Or the most beautiful woman? Issei seemed to consider each option for a moment before saying. I asked you to release Rias Gremri-sama from this marriage engagement. Riria then made a very happy face when Issei answered her without any pause. Very well. If you win, you may. But once again the door to the hall was forced open. This time, a guard came running in, and it seemed he was in a hurry. What happened now? A young man with athletic build muttered to himself, looking at the guard who was trying to catch his breath with interested eyes. Mao-sama, there is a human outside. The guard said quickly, making the hall gasp in shock. Ria's eyes widened slightly while a smile appeared on Grafia's face. He is beating up everyone who is coming close to him. We can't stop him. A number of guards then rushed out of the room to aid those outside, as the entire ballroom became silent, but then suddenly, they heard a loud boom, and instantly saw the bodies of the guards flying past the door, making them all widen their eyes in shock before they heard them crashing through the wall behind and ending up somewhere in the garden outside. Gur, who's there? Show yourself? Razor asked impatiently and flared out his flame. But beside him, Ria's nose caught the familiar scent of uzumaki ramen, something that made Grafia wince in disgust even though she was very happy. She used her hands to cover her mouth, as tears of happiness formed at the corners of her eyes. Ravel, who was standing with the rest of Razor's peerage, let out a sigh of relief without knowing. So he wasn't just a heartless bastard, Ravel thought to herself with a smile, and for the first time in her life, she admitted that she was wrong about something. Ramen delivery for Rias Gremri-chan, and sorry for the walls. A young man entered the room on a small bicycle and a large wooden box sat behind him. He was wearing casual clothes with baggy jeans and orange t-shirt with a cap hiding his face, but anyone could see the grin forming on it. The boy looked at the paper in his other hand before tossing it behind his shoulder casually. Era, what is going on here? It looks like something interesting has happened before my arrival. Riria instantly recognized him and felt her knees go numb. And then she wanted to speak out his name. Her face was that of utter shock as the event of 10 years ago flashed through her mind. She tried to move forward, but her legs were too weak and failed her. If not for Grafia, who quickly caught Riria in her arms, she would be on the ground right then. You're that lowly who? Yo, shut the fuck up, dickhead, and by the way, your fashion sense sucks. Getting off his bike, the young man pointed his hand at Riser with a smirk while walking through the crowd of devils. I came here to see my students, not talking to you. And with that, he came to a stop in front of Rias. And Naruto, Rias said, making several high-class devils in the room gasp in pure shock, but the Crimson Heiress was too happy to notice them. It's still Naruto-sensei to you, Rias. Naruto reached his hand up and flicked her forehead, causing the crimson-haired devil to whimper in pain, but that didn't stop her from smiling. And by the way, next time you make a promise to me, make sure you can keep it. Naruto then took off his cap of his head and grinned at Rias. After all, it's not every day that Naruto Uzumaki himself will treat you to ramen, you know. What? What? Several adults, dressed in the finest robes of the bunch, uttered in shock. Naruto, Rias and the others looked around in curiosity, no more than the immortal shinobi himself. Now isn't this just fantastic? The blonde chuckled humorously as he spun around and looked at every devils in the room, spinning his cap around on the tip of his finger as he continued. Everyone seems to know who I am, but I have no idea who you lots are. Well, you guys are devils obviously, but can anyone tell me what the fuck I am to all of you? One free coupon at Uzumaki Food Paradise to the one who answers that question, he offered, even though his tone became a bit more serious than before. It's not possible. A male devil stated loudly. You can't possibly be Naruto Uzumaki-sama. Okay, it seems I am well respected around here. That's good. Naruto smirked in satisfaction while rubbing his chin. However, the entire ballroom then exploded in chaos, with several high-class devils wanting to know who Naruto Uzumaki was, but those who seemed to know about him were all screaming and throwing insults at him. Most of them were calling a liar and a poor excuse of a man. The blonde could only chuckle at that, actually not believing that he was actually that famous among them. But what confused him the most was that he didn't know anything about it. Silence. A man with crimson hair like Rias, standing beside a woman who looked exactly like her, spoke up loudly with a very firm voice full of authority, effectively quieting down everyone around him before he turned back to Naruto, asking him with a hint of respect in his tone. You said your name was Uzumaki Naruto, correct? Yeah. Naruto nodded his head. Do you realize that you have the same name as the hero of the Great War, the one that is hailed and known as the shinobi? His question caused every devil in the room to gasp in shock and start to whisper among each other about that piece of information, but no one was more surprised than Rias herself. Are you claiming to be him? Yup, I'm me. Naruto answered simply as he pointed at himself. Though, I gotta admit that being a superhero in a comic book for children is cool as hell. The woman who looked like Rias covered her mouth with a shock expression on her face, as if she had realized something that no one could. My name is Zeoticus Gremory, and I am going to ask you a few simple questions that only we know. The devil introduced himself before continuing. If you can answer all of them, then without a doubt you are Naruto Uzumaki, the uncrowned hero of the devil faction. You seem like you can't remember any of us, so I will only ask you questions that only Naruto knew. And you as well, Naruto added simply, making the crimson-haired man nod his head. Naruto Uzumaki-sama trusted me with his personal information. Can you stop using past tense? I am not dead. Very well. Zeoticus nodded before starting with his first question. What is the world called in your era? Elemental nations. Naruto answered. He could tell that this man had a high amount of respect for his forgotten self, because he had a feeling that while he was going to ask questions that only Naruto Uzumaki knew, none of them was going to be too personal. You used to have a companion that you trust more than your life. He once hated you and wanted to kill you because your father locked him up somewhere he didn't want to be, but in a critical moment of your life the two of you ended up becoming the best of friends. What was his name? Zeoticus continued with the second question. His expression seemed to have relaxed somewhat. Naruto, meanwhile, was rather impressed with the man. He managed to ask all that while avoiding the unnecessary details. Kurama. Without a pause, he answered. My last question is your first lesson, Zeoticus asked, becoming emotional after hearing his second answer, which was without a doubt a correct answer. The entire ballroom had fallen into silence. But not for long. The lesson that you later taught to your students, those are now known as Riria Lucifer, Seraphal Leviathan and Ajuka Beelzebub. What is it? And with that, the whole ballroom once again erupted in absolute chaos, but it was with positivity. If Naruto Uzumaki was really the shinobi, then that meant he was the teacher that they had heard so much about of the three Yondai Mao. Naruto smiled and answered. Those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their friends are. However, before he could finish, Rias' mother, he assumed, had run over to him and threw her arms around his neck, making Naruto look at her in surprise as she brought herself into his arms in a bear hug. Zeoticus, on the other hand, walked over to stand at his side and place a hand on Naruto's shoulder, tears in his eyes as he smiled at Naruto. It's you, it's really you, Naruto-sama. He heard the woman say between sobs, making Naruto's eyes widen even further. Welcome back, Naruto-sama. He said before he threw his arms around Naruto as well. Naruto didn't know how to react to them, but he couldn't help but feel a warmth in his chest that he had almost forgotten. The embraces they were given him was like that shared between siblings, something that Naruto had always wished to have when he was a kid, seeing all those children playing with their brothers and sisters at the park. However, he couldn't help but feel something else too, something that reminded him of Hinata's father, Hayashi Hyuga, after he married his daughter. Without being noticed, Grafia had taken Riria to the back of the ballroom and found a chair for her to down, as she had become too weak to stand on her own. When Naruto answered the second question of her father, she immediately knew that it was him, her beloved husband. "It's him, Grafia," she sobbed as her maid kneeled down to look at her, holding her hands in hers. "It really is Naruto." She then looked at the maid, asking her as if her husband wasn't the one standing outside with her parents and sister. "But how can it be possible? How could he survive after that? I saw him." "Please stop, Riria." Grafia squeezed her hands and interrupted firmly, no longer addressing Riria as her mistress but as her best friend. She understood why Riria was still in denial, having been rejected the possibilities of her husband being alive by his look-alike descendants too many times for the past 10 years. "From the day Rias came to your office and told us about a man named Naruto Uzumaki that looked exactly like him, I had done all that I could to confirm his identity. I couldn't believe that it was him at first, but the more we talked and I got to know him, the more I realized that he was really Naruto-sama." But then her expression saddened, forcing the woman to look down at their hands as she continued. "But he lost his memories, Riria-sama. He came back, but he didn't remember you, me, or anyone," she said sadly. "It must be because he was shot in the head with that immortal killing weapon." "You mean he didn't remember me?" "You, me, even Rias-chan." The silver-haired maid answered with a nod. "But I believe his memories are coming back, Riria. I have seen it, the way he reacted when I told him your name. Naruto-sama still can't remember, but he knows your name means something to him because you were his most precious." Her words made the crimson-haired mouse smile a little, and warmed up her heart. "What should we do now, Grafia?" Riria couldn't help but ask. "I don't think I can." "I know you want to be with him in this instance, Riria. Believe me, I do as well," Grafia said, and reminded Riria of her own affection for Naruto, which had caused them to be at each other's throat in the past. "But I don't think it's wise to do it in front of the entire underworld without Naruto-sama's sentiment. He is also here tonight to save Rias, so I think it's best that we take it slow and let him get what he came for first. Then we can see him later and tell him all of it so he can decide how he wants everyone to know about your relationship." "You know," Riria then said, a small smile on her face as she looked at her best friend, "I think the reason you don't want me to tell him that we are married and have a son is because you want to get a head start over me." "Riria, it's okay. I don't mind." Riria shook her head and said, "You deserve it." "Like I don't," the silver-haired queen answered before the two of them smiled at each other. "We should head back, Riria-sama. Let's get this over with. The sooner, the better." "Yes, let's go." After Riria had finished fixing her makeup with a spell, the two women headed back to the ballroom where everyone seemed to be waiting for them. Naruto was still standing with Zyodicus and Venelana, who had told him a bit about themselves and their relationships with Naruto, while leaving out their eldest child because the two knew well that she would want to be the one who told him about them herself. Their eyes met, and Riria found herself smiling at him. Naruto, meanwhile, felt his heart skip a beat when he looked at the crimson-haired woman who looked like a more mature, beautiful and attractive version of Rias walking toward him with a soft smile on her face. There were so many incredibly beautiful women in the room, but this one seemed to be on a whole level of her own, making herself one of the most, if not the most beautiful woman he had ever seen in his life, excluding the memories he had lost. This was, without a doubt, Riria Lucifer, his on and off not a one-night stand, Grafia's mistress, and Ria's elder sister. My, doesn't this wedding just get a whole lot more exciting?" she asked in a sing-song voice. "Ouch, what was that for?" Naruto suddenly asked while looking at Rias, who jabbed her elbow into his rib.